Chapter 93. It was easy to add flowers to embroidery, but difficult to provide charcoal in snowy weather. Today, Qin Wendian was standing here, and it was because of the Divine Weapon Pavilion and the Emperor's Star Academy that he was in the midst of a snowstorm. Naturally, he wouldn't forget this kindness. Luo Huan slowly walked over, arriving at the side of Qin Wendian as she smiled, "Good fellow." Luo Huan understood that from today onwards, those who wanted to deal with Qin Wendian would have to worry even more. Even if they wanted to assassinate him, they would have to think things through carefully. In the royal capital of Chu, every single major power had their own powerful information network. Even the slightest movement of the grass in the wind would not escape the eyes of the intelligence network. Hence, no matter who had enmity with whom, very few people would dare to assassinate a descendant of a major power. Once the intelligence network was activated, it would be extremely terrifying. Those people seemed to have already missed the best opportunity to assassinate Qin Wendian. Maybe in the past, they didn't think that Qin Wendian had the qualifications to make them act so cautiously. But now, the Qin Wendian who stood in front of everyone was undoubtedly worthy of their attention. Naturally, this included the Yi clan and the O clan. Previously, the O clan only hoped that Orkan would be able to rely on his own strength to deal with Qin Wendian. Orkan failed to do so, and was punished by the clan to be confined. But now, if the O clan wanted to deal with Qin Wendian, they had to be extremely cautious. Qin Yao also walked over, pulling on Qin Wendian's hand as a smile bloomed on her face. "Wendian, thank you for everything you've done." Qin Yao gazed at Qin Wendian as she gently smiled. "Elder sister, what nonsense are you talking about?" Qin Wendian pinched Qin Yao's cheeks as he replied, "That's my father. We are blood-related siblings, and you're thanking me?" "I was wrong." Qin Yao gazed at the face that was gradually losing its childishness, as the smile on her face grew even more radiant. Seeing Qin Wendian's achievements, she felt gratified from the bottom of her heart. "It's good that you know your mistakes." Qin Wendian laughed, "In the future, don't return to the Snowcloud country. I'm afraid the Crown Prince of Snowcloud isn't a good person." Qin Yao nodded. "But will Qin Shang and Qin Ji be alright? I heard that the Crown Prince of the Snowcloud country is also an extraordinary character. I'm sure he wouldn't be so petty. Since we didn't offend him in any way, there's no need for him to act against Qin Shang and Qin Ji." Qin Wendian continued, "However, it's still better to write a letter to them, telling them to keep a low profile and quietly leave Snowcloud country." In the Chu country, there was a power that specialized in the delivery of letters. As long as one was able to pay the price, they could deliver the letter to the person they wanted in an extremely short period of time. "All right, I'll write a letter when I get back," Qin Yao replied. The group of them departed, heading in the direction of the Emperor's Star Academy. Little Rascal appeared out of nowhere, leaping onto Luo Huan's back. Snow was still fluttering in the air, but upon seeing the departing silhouettes, the crowd also gradually dispersed. However, Qin Wendian's name was being circulated around the Chu country at the fastest speed. Just the fact that he was able to inscribe third-level divine inscriptions was already sufficient to cause his name to resound throughout the royal capital. Not to mention, the events that happened today were already sufficient to cause people to discuss enthusiastically, becoming the topic of conversation after meals. When Qin Wendian returned to the Emperor's Star Academy, several people were currently strolling in the snow. The fluttering snowflakes seemed to have increased the beauty of the academy. Looking at the faces filled with vitality, a radiant smile appeared on Qin Wendian's face. The experiences of the past year had caused him to feel that he had matured a lot. Qin Wendian is back. From afar, several gazes were cast in the direction of Qin Wendian, as traces of a strange light could be seen flickering in their eyes. Following the snowy path, Qin Wendian slowly walked forward. Beside him, two young ladies sneaked a glance at Qin Wendian as they whispered to each other, "Xing he's Qin Wendian." In his first year, he defeated Yanaro and was even able to exchange 3 palm strikes with Luo Qinqiu. What a handsome fellow. Right now, he should be the #1 genius among our batch of new students. From the looks of it, even Murong Feng, whom he killed in the past, paled in comparison. It seems like Qin Wendian wants to catch up to senior brother Luo's footsteps. The voices of the two grew softer and softer as they gradually faded away, causing an expression of bewilderment to appear on Qin Wendian's face. The speed at which news traveled was extremely fast. It seemed like before he returned, the news had already reached the Emperor Star Academy. Seems like you've become famous. Luo Huan laughed beside Qin Wendian, causing Qin Wendian to shrug his shoulders. It seemed like the attention he had attracted this time around wasn't small. In his heart, he still felt gratified. After all, as a 17-year-old youth, he would naturally feel happy when others admired him. Naturally, he had not reached the stage where his ego was inflated. After all, he was very clear that the reason why he had such an ending today, other than his own talent, was because of the support of the Divine Weapon Pavilion and the Emperor Star Academy. He wasn't so dazzling that he could rely on his own strength to make everyone worship him. If there was such a day, the radiance radiating from him would definitely be even more dazzling than the stars in the sky. The world was extremely vast, and his life had only just begun. This was only the Chu country, yet there were already so many geniuses. If that was the case, how spectacular would the outside world be? That's only 3 moves. Senior brother Luo has yet to truly fight against him. The current him still doesn't have the qualifications to be mentioned in the same breath as senior brother Luo. At this moment, an ear-piercing voice drifted over. Qin Wendian and the rest turned their gazes over, only to see a man and a woman standing there. The expression on the man's face was extremely unsightly. As for the woman, upon seeing the gazes of Qin Wendian and the rest, an expression of panic flashed on her face. What nonsense are you talking about? After all, Qin Wendian has only entered the Emperor Star Academy for a year. It's not fair for you to compare the two of them now. Maybe, you've overestimated him. The man stared in the direction of Qin Wendian as he spoke, causing the countenance of the woman to stiffen. Qin Wendian turned his head, no longer looking in that direction, nor did he care about their words. Hugging little rascal in his arms, he continued walking forward. Seems like it's because that young lady worships you more, causing the man to feel jealous. Luo Huan smiled as she shook her head. They wouldn't place such a small matter in their hearts. After all, it was impossible to change the views of others. Upon hearing the news of Qin Wendian's return, many speculated in their hearts that the conflict between the Knights Association and Qin Wendian would escalate to a new level. Qin Wendian returned to his room, only to see Fatty Fan Lu squinting his eyes as he stared at Qin Wendian. Stepping forward, he hugged Qin Wendian as he said, "Boss, I'm so happy to see you again." "Damn Fatty, at least you still have some conscience." Qin Wendian hammered Qin Wendian on his shoulders as the two of them separated. Fan Lu was still tightly holding on to Qin Wendian's hands. "Boss, I've always been worried about your safety. I've even lost a few pounds of weight. Seeing that you're fine, I feel much more energized." "Oh yeah boss, I heard that you can inscribe 3rd-level divine inscriptions now. Did you bring me a few divine weapons?" Qin Wendian stared at Fan Li's bloated figure as he rolled his eyes. Looking at Fatty's narrowed eyes, he replied, "I'm really too touched." "No need to feel touched, just give me a few 3rd-level divine weapons to protect myself." Fatty's eyes shone with a bright light. "Nope." Qin Wendian replied. "I heard that boss already has a divine inscription interspatial ring. Not only that, you even have a long spear and an ancient halberd. It's fine even if you don't have 3rd-level divine weapons, just give me a few high-grade 2nd-level divine weapons and some Yuan meteor stones for my cultivation." Fatty persisted. "I still don't have any." Qin Wendian continued. "Good brother, you're so loyal. Didn't you say that we'll share blessings together?" Fatty stared at Qin Wendian with a hint of bitterness in his eyes, causing goosebumps to appear all over Qin Wendian's body. He was completely defeated. "Fan Lu, you don't have to worry about not having enough divine weapons in the future." Luo Huan rolled her eyes at Fatty before turning to Qin Wendian. Junior brother, I think that teacher would like to meet with you. Do you want to come with me? I have some matters that I wish to consult teacher and senior sister on. Qin Wentian nodded his head. Fan Lu, you come along as well. Luo Huan spoke to Fatty. Fan Lu nodded his head repeatedly as the few of them departed together. Not far away, the gazes of many freshmen were cast in their direction as they sighed in their hearts. Although they were all freshmen, the distance between them and Qin Wentian had already widened. Mustang was currently sitting cross-legged at the edge of a first-rate pond, his eyes closed in meditation. The teachers of the Emperor Star Academy were also under constant pressure. They had to cultivate unceasingly, to improve themselves, in an attempt to reach a higher realm. When Luo Huan brought Qin Wentian and Fan Lu over, Mustang opened his eyes, and when he looked at Qin Wentian, a gratified expression could be seen in his eyes. Teacher. Qin Wentian and Fan Lu bowed to Mustang, showing their respect. I'm ashamed to say this. As your teacher, I haven't even had the time to teach you anything, yet you already have such achievements today. Mustang smiled. Although he said this, he was actually very happy in his heart. Qin Wentian's performance had caused him, as a teacher, to feel proud. Back then in the Sky Harmony City, this disciple will always remember teacher's kindness. Qin Wentian gratefully replied. I know that you are a person who values relationships. If not, old Ren, who rarely appears in public, wouldn't have made this trip just for you. Now, your status in the Emperor Star Academy is no longer inferior to me, an elder. Mustang was extremely happy as he continued, take a seat. Seeing that Qin Wentian and the rest were seated, Mustang continued, now that you have some achievements, and will step into the Yuanfu realms sooner or later, I will tell you some things that I know. This way, your horizons will be broadened. After all, those who have received the recognition of the Emperor Star Academy will definitely be able to leave Chu in the future. The heavens and earth will not be able to stop you. Chapter 94. Qin Wentian sat cross-legged, listening attentively. Even Fan Lu, who was beside him, had a solemn expression on his face. Naturally, the world of cultivation wasn't as simple as he had imagined it to be. The level they had come in contact with was still shallow, because they didn't have the qualifications to enter the higher realms. At this moment, Mustang was undoubtedly trying to broaden their horizons, telling them about the existences they had never come into contact with before. With a wave of Mustang's hand, a gigantic circle appeared on the ground. After which, Mustang placed a small stone in the corner of the circle. This stone is the Chu country. Mustang spoke, his words causing the pupils of Qin Wentian and Fan Lu to narrow. That stone was the Chu country. What was this circle? These are the Snow Cloud country, Yen country, Glacial country. Mustang placed the pebbles into the center of the circle. Very quickly, the number of pebbles within the circle was quite large, but they only occupied a very small corner of the circle. After which, Mustang circled the area where the stones were placed. Momentarily, this area was not small, but when compared to the size of the circle, it was still very small. Mustang lifted his hands, as he placed a slightly larger rock in the middle of the circle. Including Chu, there are 10 countries. Behind them, is this gigantic stone, the 9 mystical palace. Mustang calmly stated, his words causing the hearts of Qin Wentian and Fan Lu to tremble. The 9 mystical palace should be a sect, but it was a power that was above the 10 countries. A single sentence from the 9 mystical palace can cause the Chu country to change owners, or even allow the Chu country to be annexed by other countries. However, as a transcendent power, the 9 mystical palace will not interfere in the internal affairs of the Chu country. It is a transcendent power, but only above the other countries. Occasionally, when the 9 mystical palace takes a liking to some outstanding disciples, they will send them over to the 9 mystical palace. Mustang continued, Luo Qianqiu originated from here. Qin Wentian clenched his fists, momentarily feeling an immense pressure bearing down on him. No wonder Luo Qianqiu had such a high status in the Chu country. It was because he originated from the 9 mystical palace. Not only that, he could faintly sense that the Emperor's Star Academy seemed to have something against Luo Qianqiu. Qin Wendian also understood why back then when Luo Qianqiu wanted to deal with him, Teacher Mustang had personally made a trip down to apologize to him. At that time, he had yet to receive the true recognition of the Emperor's Star Academy, yet Luo Qianqiu actually dared to kill him. Luo Qianqiu's father was also a student of the Emperor's Star Academy. Not only that, his talent was exceedingly outstanding, and he was heavily nurtured by the Emperor's Star Academy. Old Ren even accepted him as a personal disciple and took good care of him. Mustang didn't stop. As he continued, his father went to the Nine Mystical Palace, and the Emperor's Star Academy wouldn't obstruct their students from achieving a higher stage. On the contrary, the Emperor's Star Academy felt gratified for him. However, Luo Qianqiu's father conspired against the Heavenly Star Pavilion of the Emperor's Star Academy. He didn't rely on his own efforts to pass the test, and instead, he tried to steal something that didn't belong to him, and brought it to the Nine Mystical Palace. This incident almost brought a calamity to the Emperor's Star Academy. Qin Wendian and Fan Lu were once again startled. So it turned out that there was actually such a complicated situation. Since Luo Qianqiu's father had the backing of the Nine Mystical Palace, how did the Emperor's Star Academy manage to remain unscathed? Fan Lu seriously asked. The Emperor's Star Academy has nurtured countless students, but not all of them were Luo Qianqiu's father. There were some who established themselves outside of the Emperor's Star Academy, and they also had extraordinary achievements. Mustang pointed to a place outside of the Nine Mystical Palace's territory. As he continued, there was one person who, after he learned of this matter, exerted pressure on the Nine Mystical Palace. This person was an existence that even the Nine Mystical Palace feared. In the end, both sides reconciled. Qin Wendian felt gratified when he heard this. The Emperor's Star Academy had a history of a few thousand years, and there were many outstanding students who graduated from it. Evidently, they hadn't forgotten the academy that nurtured them. In the surroundings of the Nine Mystical Palace's territory, there are also many countries. Behind these countries, there are also powers similar to the Nine Mystical Palace. For example, the Misty Peak, the Setting Sun Mountain, etc. Mustang drew out many circles that were similar to the Nine Mystical Palace's territory, and very swiftly, they occupied quite a large portion of the territory. This simple yet vivid drawing allowed Qin Wendian and Fan Lu to clearly feel how tiny the Chu country was, like a tiny pebble in the middle of the Emperor's Star Academy's territory. And yet, they were still struggling to advance forward in this tiny pebble. The Nine Mystical Palace doesn't participate in the political affairs of the Chu country, but why are they able to stand behind the scenes and control 10 countries so easily? Not only that, with a single word, they could change the ruler of the Chu country. Mustang stared at Qin Wendian and Fan Lu as he asked. Naturally, it's because of their strength. Qin Wendian replied. That's right. In the Chu country, if a Heavenly Dipper sovereign appeared, it would be the law of the country. However, there are a few Heavenly Dipper sovereigns in the Nine Mystical Palace. Currently, I heard that Luo Qianqiu's father was trying to break through to the Heavenly Dipper realm. I wonder if he has already broken through. Mustang's words allowed Qin Wendian to understand what kind of status Luo Qianqiu had in the Emperor's Star Academy. The upper echelons of the Emperor's Star Academy definitely didn't want to accommodate him, but because of his background, the Emperor's Star Academy had no choice but to compromise. This disciple has a question to consult. Qin Wendian asked. Speak. Mustang nodded. Since Chu Tianjiao has such outstanding talent, his future shouldn't be in the Chu country, right? Qin Wendian asked, but he didn't finish his sentence. Based on Chu Tianjiao's talent, there was a high possibility that the Nine Mystical Palace would regard him highly. Since that was the case, why was he so stubborn about the emperor's position? Any emperor would have to pave the way for strength. Strength was the most important thing. Mustang naturally understood the meaning behind Qin Wendian's question. He smiled as he replied, Wendian, cultivation is a path that requires a lot of resources. If Chu Tianjiao is able to control the entire Chu country, in that case, who would obtain the most amount of resources? Qin Wendian's countenance stiffened, but he soon understood. Mustang continued, the emperor doesn't necessarily have to govern the Chu country. He can easily find a few clans like the Yi clan to assist him in governing the country. His own cultivation wouldn't be affected at all. Okay, next, I'll talk to you about some serious matters. Mustang gazed at Qin Wendian, as traces of joy could be seen in his eyes. I initially thought that I would only be able to talk to you about this matter next year. Who would have thought that your growth would be so fast? Hence, I have to bring this up in advance. Qin Wendian was somewhat curious, he didn't know what Mustang wanted to talk to him about. In the Chu country, there would always be a grand banquet at the end of every year. This grand banquet is named the Junlin Banquet. There are two meanings behind this name. Firstly, the emperor would personally attend the banquet. Secondly, the banquet would signify that the emperor would descend upon the world. Qin Wendian's heart trembled as he heard this. Most probably, this was the grand banquet Luo Qianqiu was talking about. It was called the Junlin Banquet. Junlin, the emperor descends upon the world. This naturally isn't a simple banquet. The Junlin Banquet will be held at the Chu Emperor District, where the Chu country was founded. The Junlin Banquet invites the heroes of the world to gather in one place. The emperor personally attends the banquet, and the young geniuses below the Yuanfu realm will spar against each other. Those who perform outstandingly during the Junlin Banquet will have their names resound throughout the entire Chu country, bringing glory to the Chu country. The top 9 rankers on the Junlin Banquet all have the aura of a monarch descending upon the Chu Emperor District, and will receive the favor of the Chu country. Not only that, I can also tell you clearly that the reason behind the Junlin Banquet is the 9 mystical palace. Previously, Mustang had said that the 9 mystical palace stood behind the various Chu countries because they wanted to select talents. At the same time, the top 9 rankers of the Junlin Banquet will all receive rewards from the Chu country. Not only that, for those from the various martial academies, if they manage to obtain the top 9 rankings, their academies will also bestow rewards to them. As for our Emperor Star Academy, we will only bestow rewards to the top rankers, and this reward will be a direct entry to the 7th level of the Heavenly Star Pavilion. 7th level of the Heavenly Star Pavilion? Qin Wendian's countenance stiffened. The 7th level of the Heavenly Star Pavilion was an existence he had always been curious about. Everyone in the Emperor Star Academy knew that the 6th level of the Heavenly Star Pavilion already contained peak-level Yuanfu cultivation arts as well as peak-tier Earth-grade innate techniques. In that case, what about the 7th, 8th, and 9th levels? Yes, the 7th level of the Heavenly Star Pavilion is the fastest shortcut. Other than the top ranker of the Junlin Banquet, there are other methods to enter the Heavenly Star Pavilion. Either way, the price to pay would be too great, or it would take too much time. Luo Qianqiu couldn't do any of these. Hence, he only had one method, and that was to obtain the top ranker of the Junlin Banquet. At that time, he would be able to step into the 7th level of the Heavenly Star Pavilion, just like his father. The 7th level of the Heavenly Star Pavilion is also the gateway to the 8th and 9th levels. I have no idea what the situation is like inside. I only know that Luo Qianqiu's father obtained the top ranker of the Junlin Banquet, and was highly regarded by the 9 mystical palace. After which, he stepped into the 7th level of the Heavenly Star Pavilion, but he didn't pass the test to enter the 8th level. After that, he wanted to borrow the strength of the 9 mystical palace to step into the 8th level. How could the Emperor Star Academy tolerate such a rebellious act? Mustang's words caused Qin Wendian to have a clearer understanding of the past. Luo Qianqiu's father, despite not passing the test, still wanted to step into the 8th level of the Heavenly Star Pavilion, enraging the Emperor Star Academy. Luo Qianqiu's appearance in the Emperor Star Academy was a gamble between the Emperor Star Academy and Luo Qianqiu's father. The Emperor Star Academy didn't want Luo Qianqiu to obtain the top ranker of the Junlin Banquet. However, now that Luo Qianqiu has already broken through to the 8th level of arterial circulation, he definitely has a chance to break through this year. Even if he fails, if he still hasn't broken through to Yuanfu next year, no one would be able to stop him. Mustang stared at Qin Wendian as he seriously continued, now that the Emperor's Star Academy has approved of you, the upper echelons of the Emperor's Star Academy would definitely hope that you would be able to stop Luo Qianqiu in the Junlin banquet next year. What if he obtained the top ranker of the Junlin banquet this year? Qin Wendian continued, could it be that the Emperor's Star Academy would really allow him to step into the 7th level of the Heavenly Star Pavilion? That means that the Emperor's Star Academy has already lost this gamble. Since they've lost, they have no choice but to admit it. Mustang inclined his head, gazing at the drifting snowflakes as he continued, every year, the Junlin banquet is the grandest event in the Chu country, and it's also the time when the number of young geniuses is the highest. Among them, there would definitely be many who are at the 9th level of arterial circulation, or even at the peak of arterial circulation. Let's hope that there will be someone who can defeat Luo Qianqiu. He didn't think that Qin Wendian would be able to stop Luo Qianqiu this year. After all, there were only 2 months left until the Junlin banquet. Time was too short, and although Qin Wendian could participate in the Junlin banquet, it could only be considered as a tempering exercise. Chapter 95. Qin Wendian's current cultivation base was at the 6th level of arterial circulation. A year from now, he should be able to step into the peak of the arterial circulation realm. This year's time was sufficient for Qin Wendian to stabilize his cultivation base and strengthen the abilities bestowed by his astral souls in combat. At that time, during the Junlin banquet, Qin Wendian would be able to contend for the position of the top ranker. Pinning my hopes on others? Qin Wendian mumbled. He had already experienced Luo Qianqiu's combat prowess. Although Luo Qianqiu had yet to unleash his full strength, he was already strong enough. If it weren't for the fact that Qin Wendian had made the first move, the ending would have been different. Since Luo Qianqiu wanted to enter the 7th level of the Heavenly Star Pavilion, Qin Wendian would naturally not underestimate him. Luo Qianqiu originated from the 9 mystical palace. Naturally, Qin Wendian wouldn't underestimate him. Luo Qianqiu definitely had his own trump cards. Even if the chances for this year's Junlin banquet aren't high, I still have to try. Qin Wendian spoke. I think so too. It's just that the Junlin banquet has a certain degree of danger. Luo Qianqiu, Orkan, and the rest will all be participating. Just treat this as a tempering exercise for yourself. If you really can't handle it, just withdraw. Be careful. Mustang spoke to Qin Wendian. Currently, the Emperor's Star Academy had high hopes for Qin Wendian. Mustang understood what this high hopes meant. The 7th level of the Heavenly Star Pavilion was the pathway to the 8th and 9th levels. Back then, the founder of the Emperor's Star Academy, the Azure Emperor, had left behind the Heavenly Star Pavilion. In the long river of history, there had never been a single person who managed to enter the 9th level. The upper echelons of the Emperor's Star Academy had always hoped that one day, a disciple with outstanding character and talent would appear, creating history. Teacher, can I enter the 6th level of the Heavenly Star Pavilion now? Qin Wendian laughed foolishly, causing Mustang to roll his eyes. You want to open the back door? Now that you can inscribe 3rd-level divine inscriptions, it shouldn't be too difficult for you to obtain more Yuan meteor stones. No matter what, you should at least contribute to the academy. Qin Wendian's countenance sank, only to hear Mustang continuing, how about this, you can upgrade your Emperor's Star Jade Medallion to the 4th level, and as for the amount of Yuan meteor stones required to upgrade it from the 4th level to the 5th level, you can tell the elder over there to put it under my name. This way, you will be able to enter the 5th level of the Heavenly Star Pavilion. As for the higher levels, you will have to think of your own methods. Thank you, teacher. Qin Wendian's expression changed. The 5th level of the Heavenly Star Pavilion. This way, he would be able to come into contact with a sea of Earth-class mid-grade sacred arts. Teacher, what about me? What about me? Fatty pointed to himself, his eyes flickering unceasingly. Stay here and cultivate with me. Mustang glared at Fan Lo, if you were more diligent in your cultivation, you wouldn't have been left behind by Wentian. Fatty had a bitter expression on his face as he nodded his head. During this period of time when Qin Wentian was missing, Mustang had frequently guided him in his cultivation, and treated him extremely well. For this, Fan Luo was naturally very grateful. Luo Huan also smiled. This fatty's talent was very good, but he was too lazy. Even so, his current cultivation base was already at the 5th level of arterial circulation, and he could already be considered one of the strongest among the new students. Fatty, I will help you upgrade your Emperor's Star Jade Medallion to the 4th level, Qin Wendian spoke to Fan Luo, causing Fan Li's eyes to widen as he replied, good brother. Teacher, we will take our leave first. Qin Wendian bade farewell to Fan Luo, before departing with Luo Huan. Mustang lowered his head, staring at the gigantic circle he had drawn. Qin Wendian and Fan Luo didn't ask what this gigantic circle was, because they didn't want to bite off more than they could chew. To them, the 9 mystical palace was already an unfathomable existence. The power represented by this gigantic circle wasn't something they could imagine. After Qin Wendian and the rest left, a silhouette appeared behind Mustang. Mustang stood up and bowed to the person who had just arrived. Old Ren, why don't you let this little brat upgrade his Emperor's Star Jade Medallion by himself? Evidently, the academy had already opened the back door for Qin Wendian by giving him the name of Mustang. He has already cultivated the 1,000 Hands imprint to the 3rd stance, the Emptiness imprint. It's a mid-tier Earth-grade innate technique, and he can already unleash its full potential. The 5th level is just right for him. I hope that he will be able to grow faster, and it would be best if we can give him a huge amount of pressure during the upcoming June Lin banquet. Pressure is also the motivation for him to advance. Old Ren spoke with a deep meaning in his words. I hope that my judgment this time around will be able to atone for my mistakes in the past. Mustang stared at Old Ren as he sighed in his heart. It seemed like Old Ren still felt heartache and self-blame for nurturing Luo Qianqiu's father. After Qin Wendian upgraded his Emperor's Star Jade Medallion to the 5th level, he once again entered the Heavenly Star Pavilion. Finally, he chose 2 innate techniques, both of which were mid-tier Earth-grade innate techniques. Since he could cultivate the 1,000 Hands imprint to the Emptiness imprint level, this indicated that he had already comprehended and cultivated innate techniques of this level. Innate technique, Falling Mountain Palms. This was a set of palm techniques that were linked together. As one's mastery of it increased, the might of the palm techniques would grow stronger and stronger. At the pinnacle of mastery, every palm strike would be akin to the descent of a mountain peak. As to why Qin Wendian chose the falling mountain palms, it was because he had a divine imprint that was compatible with it. This divine imprint was akin to a mountain peak, and was a 2nd-level divine imprint. Previously, Qin Wendian had tried to condense divine energy using this divine imprint, but the speed was extremely slow, and the consumption of astral energy was even greater. However, he was already able to do so. During his battle with Luo Qianqiu, he had condensed some divine energy from this divine imprint, allowing him to unleash a tyrannical might. Now, the speed at which he condensed divine energy from his palms was getting faster and faster. Sooner or later, he would step into the 2nd level of the spiritual refinement method. At that time, he would be able to condense divine energy from this mountain-like divine energy. Even now, he could still condense some of it and store it in his acupuncture points as a trump card. The 2nd innate technique that Qin Wendian chose was the Berserk Beast Halberd technique. It had a total of 4 stances and 36 variations. The 4 stances were respectively the Azure Dragon stance, White Tiger stance, Vermilion Bird stance, and Black Tortoise stance. Each stance contained 9 variations, flowing like the clouds and flowing like water, in a single breath, possessing both offensive and defensive capabilities. The innate techniques in the Heavenly Star Pavilion of the Emperor's Star Academy were all-encompassing. There were sword techniques, saber techniques, spear techniques, halberd techniques, etc. Qin Wendian felt that the tyrannical nature of his Heavenly Hammer constellation technique, as well as the tyrannical nature of his astral energy, were extremely compatible with the tyrannical nature of the ancient halberd. After seeing the berserk beast halberd technique, he didn't hesitate and immediately decided to cultivate it. As such, in terms of pure offensive innate techniques, he already had the Thousand Hands imprint and the Falling Mountain Palms. In terms of both offense and defense, he had the berserk beast halberd technique. As for movement techniques, he had the 9 heavenly Garuda movement technique. If he could cultivate all of these to perfection, his combat prowess would definitely be greatly enhanced. 3 days later, in an exquisite courtyard within the Emperor's Star Academy, beside a pond, Qin Wendian slept with his eyes closed, oblivious to the happenings in the outside world. In the Emperor's Star Academy, once a student's jade medallion reached the 4th level, they would be able to choose a courtyard to stay in. Naturally, Qin Wendian could do so. Naturally, Qin Wendian wasn't just sleeping. In his dreams, there was a sea that was crazily roaring. Beside the sea, there was a silhouette wielding an ancient halberd. Every time the halberd danced, it was as though a ferocious tiger was howling in rage. The howling of the tiger was akin to the howling of a pack of tigers in the forest. A gigantic wave slammed against the sea. The silhouette's halberd technique changed, and the wind and rain were impenetrable. In front of him, an incomparably gigantic Xuanwu appeared, swallowing and spitting out waves. At this moment, the silhouette took a step forward, and his entire person transformed into a Garuda, soaring upwards. With a howl of rage, the ancient halberd transformed into the azure dragon stance, as numerous azure dragons roared in the direction of the sea. After a long period of time, the silhouette landed on the ground, and sat down on the beach. This silhouette was none other than Qin Wendian. Since it was a dream, it could be magnified. Why not have a grand dream? Imagine yourself to be stronger, and unleash the full power of the innate techniques. This way, the acceptance of the innate techniques would be stronger. Qin Wendian inclined his head and stared at the sky. The sky wasn't the sky, but rather, it was a gigantic painting, the painting of rivers and mountains. Every stroke of the brush formed mountains, rivers, and earth, as well as a supreme innate technique. Qin Wendian's gaze gradually sank into contemplation. Every stroke of the brush could form mountains, rivers, and earth. The mountains, rivers, and earth seemed to be formed from the inscriptions of the painting. Divine imprints could also be used to form divine energy. As he cultivated the innate techniques, he discovered that the method of exerting force was extremely similar to that of divine imprints. For example, the falling mountain palms. When he exerted force, he controlled his true yuan, transforming it into a mountain peak that smashed downwards. When he condensed the mountain divine energy, his attack was extremely similar to the falling mountain palms. It was just that the falling mountain palms was much more complex, yet they achieved the same result through different means. Qin Wendian had a bold thought. Could innate techniques be derived from divine imprints? Staring at the painting of rivers and mountains that hung in the air, Qin Wendian sank into contemplation. Even if others discovered something unusual, they wouldn't think too deeply about it. Even if they thought about it, only an extremely small number of people would explore it. Because, not all stellar martial cultivators were like Qin Wendian, possessing the spirit refinement method and the painting of rivers and mountains, as well as having extraordinary attainments in inscribing divine imprints. After visualizing for 3 days, Qin Wendian still didn't obtain an answer. However, Qin Wendian was still elated. Because, his understanding of innate techniques seemed to have deepened. Maybe, he would be able to comprehend them according to his own way of thinking. Only to see Qin Wendian inscribing on the ground. Every stroke of his brush seemed to contain a mysterious energy within. This time around, he didn't condense the divine imprint within his body. Instead, he used his hands to attempt to inscribe the divine imprint of his own imagination. The marvelousness of divine imprints lay in the fact that the divine imprints created by the predecessors were all extremely perfect. As long as there was a single mistake, the divine imprint would lose its original strength. Hence, if one wanted to rely on their own strength to create a complete divine imprint, it was an extremely difficult task. Qin Wendian wanted to try it out. The painting of rivers and mountains in the air, wasn't it an attempt by the green-robed middle-aged man to comprehend his own insights? Chapter 96. In the dreamscape, Qin Wentian had completely sunk into that unique state. He had forgotten how much time had passed, and he didn't even know what he was doing. Even when Qin Yao called out to him from the outside world, he didn't even notice her. Hence, Qin Yao didn't continue to disturb his dreamscape. If there were experts who were proficient in the mandate of dreams here, they would definitely know that Qin Wentian's current state was that he had entered into a deep dreamscape. In this state, it was equivalent to entering a deeper level of comprehension and cultivation. His comprehension ability was at its peak. 2 days later, in front of the dreamscape beach, Qin Wentian's fingers finally stopped. He stared at the diagram he had inscribed as he awoke from that special state of mind. Success. Qin Wentian's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise. The diagram he inscribed was a human-shaped diagram. That person wielded an ancient halberd, thrusting forward. Such a simple movement, yet it gave off a feeling of boundless strength. That kind of aura, an indomitable will, capable of destroying everything in its path. This diagram seemed to have a mind of its own. As long as one stared at it, they would discover that it was like a living diagram, able to bring them into a miraculous state. Can this be considered a brand new type of divine imprint? Qin Wentian murmured. Human-shaped divine imprint, if it could be considered a new type of divine imprint, what grade would it belong to? Qin Wentian inclined his head and stared at the empty space. He didn't know how much time had passed, and with an intention of his will, Qin Wentian exited the dreamscape. This was a dream he created himself, he could control his will to enter and exit the dreamscape. In the outside world, Qin Wentian opened his eyes, returning to reality. He discovered Qin Yao pacing back and forth at a distance away. He couldn't help but smile as he greeted, "Sister." Upon seeing that Qin Wentian had awoken, Qin Yao couldn't help but smile as she walked to his side. "You've been cultivating for a really long time. Did you wait for a long time?" Qin Wentian asked. "I came here occasionally because I wanted to tell you something. I've received a letter from the Snowcloud country." Qin Yao's countenance turned solemn as she continued, "In the letter, they said that at the end of the year, they would come to Chu together with the crown prince of the Snowcloud country." "Why did they do that?" Qin Wentian frowned. "Not sure." Qin Yao shook her head. But soon after, an extremely important piece of news circulated around the royal capital of Chu. For the Junlin banquet at the end of this year, the crown prince of Snowcloud will be bringing people along with him. Seems like the Junlin banquet this year will be extremely lively. Qin Wentian said in a low voice. Then, he smiled at Qin Yao and said, "Sister, don't worry too much. Everything will be clear at the end of the year. It's good that you know about this. Don't feel too much pressure and cultivate hard. I'm useless myself, so I can only place my hopes on you." Qin Yao said apologetically. She knew that with her strength, she would never be able to save her father and grandfather. This burden could only fall onto Qin Wentian's shoulders. "Don't worry, sister, there will definitely be a day when I stand high up in the sky, looking down on the entire Chu country." Qin Wentian gently caressed Qin Yao's face as he consoled her with a smile. Qin Yao smiled as she nodded her head. "I'll go prepare something for you to eat." "Good, I can taste sister's cooking again." Qin Wentian laughed as Qin Yao walked towards the room at the side. Qin Wentian had chosen an independent manner, so naturally, he would bring Qin Yao to stay together with him. After Qin Yao left, Qin Wentian found a few pieces of paper and started to inscribe the picture on the paper. However, in the real world, Qin Wentian wanted to inscribe the picture in the dreamscape, but to his surprise, he failed again and again. Evidently, in the dreamscape, he had hypnotized himself, pushing himself to his limits. However, as Qin Wentian gradually calmed his heart, he repeated this process several times, and when Qin Yao was done preparing the dishes, the picture was finally completed. After all, he had already achieved this in the dreamscape. In the real world, he only needed time to adapt to it. What an exquisite picture, it's as though it's alive. Qin Yao stood in front of Qin Wentian, her beautiful eyes glimmering with a strange light. Wentian, why do I feel a tyrannical aura gushing towards me? That silhouette seems to be asleep and awake at the same time, and when its eyes open and close, it's as though a divine light would shoot out from them, as though it wanted to use the ancient halberd in its hands to tear apart the heavens and earth. The more Qin Yao looked at the picture, the more curious she felt. Her consciousness felt as though it was about to be sucked into the picture. She felt as though she was standing on the surface of the sea, facing this incomparably tyrannical silhouette, and could be destroyed at any moment. This is the first runic pattern I've inscribed, I wonder if it can be considered a divine imprint. Qin Wentian laughed. Divine imprints are incomparably wondrous, even the most ordinary of first-level divine imprints are so vivid and lifelike, as though they contain a life of their own. This picture that I inscribed in this strange state, if it really has the same effect as a divine imprint, its grade shouldn't be too low. What a monster! Qin Yao didn't know how to describe Qin Wentian. Just a single glance at the picture made her feel that it was incomparably profound. Qin Wentian had actually comprehended it on his own. Such a level of comprehension was something she couldn't hope to match. Naturally, she was happy for Qin Wentian. This was her younger brother, the person closest to her. Okay, let's go eat. Qin Yao pulled Qin Wentian along as they left. Qin Wentian's eyes lit up as he enjoyed a sumptuous meal with Qin Yao. After enjoying a heartwarming lunch, Qin Wentian entered the City of Illusions through the Dream Sky Forest. Life in the academy was peaceful and free, but one couldn't forget to raise one's strength. In the City of Illusions, Qin Wentian appeared in an empty space. He rubbed the interspatial ring on his finger, and with a slight intention of his will, an ancient halberd appeared in his hands. Indeed, this dreamscape is so realistic. As long as I bring something into the dreamscape, it can be used in the dreamscape. Qin Wentian's silhouette flickered, transforming into a series of afterimages as he moved at an extremely fast speed. Many people in the surroundings avoided Qin Wentian when they saw him. Currently, Qin Wentian's fame was getting greater and greater. He was someone who could easily defeat Yanaro and exchange blows with Luo Qianqiu. If one didn't have a cultivation base at the 8th level of arterial circulation, no one would dare to antagonize him. This was especially so for Qin Wentian, who wielded an ancient halberd. Very quickly, Qin Wentian spotted a member of the Knights Association. This person wielded a long spear, and his eyes gleamed with sharpness. Bzzz, a raging wind gusted by. Qin Wentian's silhouette was akin to a gigantic bird, as he dashed towards his opponent with lightning speed. That person knew that there was no way to retreat. Similarly, he brandished his long spear and dashed towards Qin Wentian. White Tiger Stance. Executing the Berserk Beast halberd art, Qin Wentian stabbed out with his ancient halberd, resembling the roar of a ferocious tiger. His halberd collided with his opponent's long spear, instantly causing it to be flung away. Puchi. The tip of the halberd, as well as the crescent moon blades, pierced into his opponent's body. That pain was akin to torture. That person stared fixedly at Qin Wentian, before his silhouette vanished from sight. After killing his opponent, Qin Wentian immediately sped away. Not long after, he encountered the second member of the Knights Association. A gust of wind gusted by as the ancient halberd swept out horizontally. The crescent moon blades were as sharp as the wings of a vermilion bird, radiating a cold golden light as they directly sliced through the throat of that person. Fresh blood splattered as the silhouette of that person also vanished from sight. Time and time again, as long as they encountered members of the Knights Association, they would definitely die under the ancient halberd. Qin Wentian had become the nightmare of the Knights Association. Many in the City of Illusions had personally witnessed Qin Wentian slaughtering the members of the Knights Association. This news circulated around the Emperor's Star Academy, causing many to sigh. Evidently, Qin Wentian hadn't forgotten the humiliation he had suffered at the hands of Qin Wentian. The conflict between the Knights Association and Qin Wentian would only grow more and more intense. As for Orkhan, it was said that after he broke through to the 9th level of arterial circulation, he went out to temper himself. Everyone was clear that Orkhan was preparing for the Junlin banquet a month later. The moment he returned, he would definitely not spare Qin Wentian. However, Qin Wentian also encountered a tough opponent in the City of Illusions. His opponent was clad in blue robes, and his cultivation base was at the peak of the 8th level of arterial circulation. His combat prowess was extremely terrifying. Qin Wentian was naturally extremely excited as he frenziedly unleashed his berserk beast halberd technique, comprehending new insights in the midst of battle. The 4 stances and 36 transformations of the berserk beast halberd technique was a complete set of halberd techniques. The more one mastered it, the greater the power they could unleash. In Qin Wentian's dreams, he imagined himself using his strongest halberd technique, and a true azure dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, and black tortoise would appear in a single strike. Chi. At this moment, Qin Wentian only felt that the palm strike of his opponent was illusory. His ancient halberd danced in the air, transforming into a xuanwu, protecting him. However, when the palm strike of his opponent landed on the xuanwu, it trembled 9 times, causing cracks to appear on his defense. Qin Wentian's silhouette floated backwards as he laughed, "Let's fight again another day." After speaking, he turned and left, arriving at a separate space by himself. After which, he began to practice his halberd techniques. The reason why he didn't continue fighting earlier was because he had comprehended something. The ancient halberd slashed out again and again, tyrannical beyond compare. However, Qin Wentian still felt that something was amiss. There was no aura of the divine imprint, nor was there the resolution of that halberd strike. Qin Wentian. At this moment, a pleasantly surprised voice drifted over. Qin Wentian halted his training, and after which, he saw the silhouette of Mu Rou. What a coincidence! Qin Wentian smiled. After I heard that you returned to the Emperor's Star Academy, I would come here to see if I could meet you again. Mu Rou glared at Qin Wentian. Only now did Qin Wentian realize that this was the place where he and Mu Rou would frequently spar. Seems like he was too engrossed in it. Awkwardly smiling, Qin Wentian asked, "Is there something you need from me? Can't I look for you if there's nothing?" Mu Rou had a bitter expression on her face, causing Qin Wentian to smile bitterly. Mu Rou then replied with a smile, "I'm just teasing you. Tomorrow is my 18th birthday. Can you come here to give me your blessings, and at the same time, spar with me to temper my movement techniques? I can do it now." Qin Wentian laughed, as he kept his ancient halberd. "Come and attack me." "Okay." Mu Rou laughed, as she launched an attack towards Qin Wentian. Mu Rou discovered that her attacks were already unable to touch Qin Wentian. Not only that, every time she tried to dodge, his movements would be exquisite to the extreme. It was as though with just a thought, his entire body would dance along with his movements, extremely exquisite. However, this kind of tempering was extremely beneficial to her own innate techniques. She slowly comprehended it, and only when she was drenched in sweat did she stop. Together with Qin Wentian, she left the City of Illusions. After Qin Wentian exited the City of Illusions, he returned to his courtyard, as though he was deep in thought. Glancing at the painting in the pavilion, Qin Wentian's eyes brightened. Mu Rou had treated him very well, and since it was her 18th birthday, he should give her a present to congratulate her. Chapter 97. Today was Mu Rou's 18th birthday. She was in the prime of her youth, yet she felt exceptionally lonely and cold. Because this year, her clan didn't summon her back to prepare a banquet for her. Many of her old friends also didn't come to congratulate her. Shui Yuan, Ku her. Mu Rou was currently in an elegant courtyard. This was the place she shared with 2 other girls. Upon seeing the 2 girls, Mu Rou called out. "Mu Rou, what's the matter?" The 2 girls turned and asked Mu Rou. "Today is my birthday, let's have a meal together." Mu Rou said to Shui Yuan and Ku her. "No need, I have some matters to attend to today." you should spend your time by yourself. Shui Yuan smiled. I have matters to attend to as well, I won't be accompanying you. Ku replied as well. She didn't even bid farewell and directly walked out of the courtyard. Seeing this scene, Mu Rou sighed in her heart. Although the two of them were smiling, it was merely a smile on the surface. It was obvious that the other party didn't want to have too much contact with her. Mu Rou had long sensed this. But even so, she still felt a little disappointed. Chu Ling also lived here in the past, and the relationship between the four of them wasn't bad. Especially between her and Chu Ling, Shui Yuan and Ku liked to go along with them, while Chu Ling was cold and indifferent. Mu Rou didn't mind so much, and was very close to Shui Yuan and Ku. Mu Rou also stood up and left, heading towards the Dream Sky Forest, arriving at a familiar location in the City of Illusions. However, she didn't see Qin Wentian for too long, so she left. If it was in the past, she would have waited a little longer. But today, she was absent-minded, and didn't seem to be in the mood to do so. At this moment, Shui Yuan and Ku returned to their residence. When they left, they received a picture scroll sent over by the Sky Transport Network. The Sky Transport Network was one of the 3 largest networks in the Chu country. At the same time, it was also the largest transportation network in the Chu country. They reared many demonic beasts, and as long as one was willing to pay the price, they would be able to send items across countries in a short period of time. After all, many of the youths from the various academies were far away from their hometowns, and would often need to send letters back home. This painting was sent from the Emperor's Star Academy to Mu Rou, but because Mu Rou wasn't at home, the Sky Transport Network passed it to Shui Yuan for her to deliver. Shui Yuan and Ku were somewhat curious, but they didn't pay too much attention to it. They brought the painting with them as they went to listen to an elder's lecture. Although they weren't as close to Mu Rou as they were in the past, they still agreed to help deliver the painting to Mu Rou. They wouldn't lose anything that was given to Mu Rou by the Sky Transport Network. The Sky Transport Network was one of the 3 largest companies in the Chu country. In order to send the items to all the countries, this in itself required a terrifying information network that was familiar with every place and every person. Shui Yuan, what is this? Asked Chu Ling curiously when she saw the scroll in Shui Yuan's hand. Oh, this was sent over by the Sky Transport Network for Mu Rou. It seems that it was sent from the Emperor's Star Academy, but the sender didn't leave their name behind. Shui Yuan replied. Emperor's Star Academy? Open it and take a look. Chu Ling spoke to Shui Yuan, causing Shui Yuan to hesitate. This didn't seem too good, but upon seeing Chu Ling's frown, she still opened the painting. Momentarily, a marvelous painting appeared before their eyes. Their bodies involuntarily retreated a step, and even the painting fell to the ground. Earlier, at the instant the painting was opened, they felt a tyrannical aura, as though the painting was about to imprint itself into their souls. What's going on? The people at the side all came over, staring at the miraculous painting on the ground. They could all sense the aura emanating from it. It was as though this painting wasn't dead, but a true expert wielding an ancient halberd, wanting to destroy everything in its path. What a marvelous painting, it must be extremely valuable. If it's someone who loves to paint, they would definitely collect it. The surrounding people all exclaimed in admiration, while Chu Ling snorted, it's just a painting. Chu Ling was thinking in her heart, who was it that actually sent such a painting to Mu Rou? What are you guys doing? At this moment, a middle-aged man walked over. He was none other than the teacher for today's lecture. Upon seeing the crowd gathered together, he couldn't help but walk over. Momentarily, the crowd parted to form a path. The gaze of the teacher landed on the ground, and he also saw the painting. Whose painting is this? The elder from the Royal Academy asked. Shui Yuan's. Someone pointed to Shui Yuan. Can you lend it to me for a while? The elder asked Shui Yuan, causing an expression of difficulty to appear on Shui Yuan's face. This painting was given to Mu-ro by the Sky Transport Network, and the instant she agreed to pass it to the Royal Academy, she would have to take responsibility for it. The Sky Transport Network had sought their opinion, and they had voluntarily agreed to pass it to the Royal Academy. Shui Yuan, in the future, if you encounter any difficulties in your cultivation, you can look for me. The elder spoke again, causing Shui Yuan's countenance to stiffen. There was no harm in lending it to him. As an elder of the Royal Academy, it was impossible for him to lose the painting. Emicham, Shui Yuan nodded her head. The elder smiled as he kept the painting. Today's lecture is temporarily cancelled. Everyone, please disperse for now. After speaking, he took the painting and hurriedly left, causing the other students to click their tongues in wonder. They surrounded Shui Yuan, asking her what that painting was, and why the elder of the Royal Academy valued it so highly. With regards to this news, Mu-ro didn't know about it. Even Qin Wendian himself didn't realize the value of the painting. After Mu-ro returned to her residence, she discovered that Shui Yuan seemed to be more polite to her than before. Not only that, there was a flicker in her eyes, causing her to feel extremely strange. However, she didn't pay too much attention to it, and spent the rest of the day in disappointment. Her 18th birthday was probably the loneliest birthday she had ever had as far as she could remember. Maybe it was because of the pressure from her clan, but her father, who had always doted on her, didn't invite her back. Those major characters were too sensitive to matters related to politics. How could they care about her feelings? The date of the Junlin banquet gradually approached. The 9 mystical palace might stand behind the scenes, Luo Qianqiu might be able to contend for the top ranker position, and the crown prince of Snowcloud would also come. Chu Tianjiao's authority would only grow more and more stable. At this moment, the friends of Qin Wendian would naturally be disliked. That day, the youth standing amidst the snowstorm had rejected the third prince, Chu Tianjiao's request to be friends. Today, the students of the Royal Academy didn't know that in the Royal Academy, there were many teachers who were in a state of shock because of a painting sent over from the Emperor's Star Academy. Naturally, they didn't know that the painting originated from the Emperor's Star Academy. According to the elder who received the painting belonged to Shui Yuan, a student of the Royal Academy. Since they already knew the origins of the painting, they naturally wouldn't investigate further. Today, the Royal Academy decided to display the painting in the Royal Academy. Not only that, they would invite people from all over to view it, especially those from the weaponsmithing world. This news quickly spread throughout the royal capital of Chu, and on the second day, it had already spread throughout the Royal Academy. A painting belonging to a student of the Royal Academy, Shui Yuan, was a priceless treasure. The Royal Academy actually invited people from all over to view it, causing a huge commotion. However, Shui Yuan felt extremely uneasy in her heart. That painting didn't belong to her, and if this matter was exposed, she would definitely lose all face and prestige. Shui Yuan thought that now, she could only try to build up a good relationship with Mu-ro. After they became more familiar with each other, she would return the painting to Mu-ro before telling her the truth. Mu-ro was baffled. She didn't know why Shui Yuan was so cordial towards her today, and even invited her to view the mystical painting that was on display in the academy. However, she was also very curious about this matter, so she followed Shui Yuan to the exhibition hall. The exhibition hall of the Royal Academy was extremely spacious and grand. In the center of the first level, a painting was displayed. Many people stopped to view it, but they had to maintain a certain distance from it. Near the painting, there were also old men of virtue and prestige. Although they looked old, there was a unique charm in their eyes, as though they were filled with vigor. This painting should be a divine imprint. Such a humanoid divine imprint, it's definitely a revolutionary creation. I wonder which grandmaster created this. An old man commented, having an extremely high evaluation of this painting. If this painting is classified as a divine imprint, this should be an initial grade 3rd level divine imprint. However, the aura it exudes is extremely extraordinary, and I dare to say that this divine imprint has never appeared in the Chu country before. Another person commented, causing the crowd to be stunned. This painting was actually a divine imprint. A revolutionary creation, priceless. More and more people commented, and some of them even asked the elders of the Royal Academy, "Is this painting for sale?" You have to ask the person in question. That elder was none other than Shui Yuan's teacher. His gaze landed on Shui Yuan as he smiled. "Shui Yuan, are you willing to sell this painting?" Shui Yuan's countenance froze, as she glanced at Mu Rou who was beside her. "If we were to sell it, the value of the divine inscription painting would be unimaginable to you," Qin Wendian said. That elder continued, "Also, how did you obtain this painting? Which Grand Master created it?" Mu Rou also cast a glance at Shui Yuan, feeling somewhat taken aback. Shui Yuan actually possessed such a valuable painting, causing an uproar. The Grand Masters from the Star River Association have arrived. At this moment, a voice drifted over, as a few silhouettes walked over. Evidently, they were also here for the painting. Chapter 98. This time around, there were 4 people from the Star River Association. The one in the lead appeared to be around 50 years of age, and the instant he entered, his gaze landed on the painting. The person on his left was none other than Murin, and behind him was Gretchen from the Royal Academy. She knew that the vice president would be coming today, so she specially came to lead the way. President Sua. The elders of the Royal Academy, as well as the people around the painting, all clasped their hands in greeting. Evidently, this person was an important character. The vice president of the Star River Association, Zui Yin, was in charge of the weaponsmithing department. His authority was extremely great, and he himself was also a third-ranked weaponsmith. Zui Yin nodded his head to the crowd, before turning his gaze to Shui Yuan. "Little miss, how about selling this painting to me? I can use a third-ranked divine weapon to exchange for it." Shui Yuan's heart pounded. She wanted to say yes, but this wasn't hers. She couldn't afford the price of pocketing the treasures of the Sky Transport Network. No need. Shui Yuan's heart was pounding. "Little miss, you can tell me what you want. Such opportunities are hard to come by." Zui Yin continued. Shui Yuan didn't even dare to look him in the eye. "Zui Yin, it doesn't seem good to force a little lass like this." At this moment, a voice drifted over. Zui Yin's eyes narrowed as he gazed at the silhouette walking over. The person who came was dressed simply and was an extremely ordinary old man. If he was placed in a crowd, no one would pay him a second glance. However, the moment he appeared, Zui Yin's heart involuntarily trembled. With this old man here, it wouldn't be easy to obtain the painting. Seems like I have to keep a low profile. Zui Yin silently mused. After which, he whispered into Murin's ears, "Obtain this painting. Also, think of a way to find the owner of this painting. If he's in Chu, you have to invite him to the Star River Association." Murin nodded her head. If that lass refused to speak, they would have to mobilize the intelligence network of the Star River Association in the next few days. The commotion caused by this matter grew larger and larger. Shui Yuan's heart was filled with panic, and she struggled internally. She was prepared to retrieve the painting tomorrow, and then return it to Mu Rou. The news had even spread to the various martial academies, causing a commotion in the Emperor's Star Academy. Now, the royal school was even temporarily open to the public, allowing people to come and admire the paintings. Today, Mu Rou's mood had calmed down quite a bit. She had once again returned to the Dream Sky Forest. Ever since she had been alienated by the others, she preferred to train in the City of Illusions, constantly becoming stronger. As usual, Mu Rou headed to a familiar place. To her surprise, she ran into Qin Wendian. She could not help but smile and ask, "Why are you here? Yesterday, you asked me to come here to wish you well. I arrived a little late and didn't see you, so I came here today to try my luck." Qin Wendian shrugged his shoulders, causing an expression of guilt to appear on Mu Rou's face as she replied, "You really came here to wait for me? Yesterday, I only stayed here for a while before leaving." "I'm sorry. So that's how it is. I thought you encountered something unpleasant. Qin Wendian revealed a smile. He had already regarded Mu Rou as his friend, so he would naturally take her feelings into consideration. You're thinking too much. Mu Rou gently continued, oh yes, Qin Wendian, you are a genius that can inscribe third-level divine inscriptions. Currently, our Royal Academy is exhibiting a painting that, according to the evaluation of the Grandmaster Inscriptionists, is a third-level divine inscription painting. Do you want to come to the Royal Academy to take a look? Divine inscription painting? Qin Wendian had always been focused on his cultivation. Although the Emperor's Star Academy had some news about it, he had never heard of it before. Yes, it's a painting in the form of a human, wielding an ancient halberd. It's very similar to your divine weapon. Mu Rou said as she recalled the ancient halberd in Qin Wendian's hands. Qin Wendian furrowed his brows upon hearing this. A painting in the form of a human, wielding an ancient halberd? Wasn't this the present he had prepared for Mu Rou? Mu Rou, did you receive the present I prepared for you yesterday? Qin Wendian casually asked. Present? Mu Rou froze for a moment before a look of pleasant surprise appeared on her face. Smiling, she replied, I didn't expect that you would send me a present. I haven't received it yet. What did you get from a friend of yours, or even the Sky Transport Network? Mu Rou's words undoubtedly confirmed Qin Wendian's conjecture. It seemed like he had to find someone from the Sky Transport Network. Wait for me at the Royal Academy, I'll make a trip there now. Qin Wendian spoke as he turned and departed. Why are you in such a hurry? Mu Rou was somewhat puzzled as she called out to Qin Wendian, I'll wait for you at the entrance of the Royal Academy. After which, she also departed with a smile on her face. Thinking that there were still people who remembered her birthday, Mu Rou's heart warmed. Those who distanced themselves from her because she was down and out, had made her understand the fickleness of human nature. True friends wouldn't behave in such a manner. Qin Wendian found someone from the Sky Transport Network who was stationed at the Emperor's Star Academy. Upon receiving the news, the Sky Transport Network immediately started to investigate, and they were extremely cooperative with Qin Wendian. As for Qin Wendian himself, he arrived at the Royal Academy. As expected, Mu Rou was waiting for him outside the Royal Academy. So fast. Mu Rou stared in astonishment at the rapidly shrinking body of little rascal beside Qin Wendian, as her beautiful eyes flashed with a strange light. This little fellow's speed is even faster than a draconic horse. Qin Wendian laughed, let's go take a look at the divine inscription painting you were talking about. Seems like you are indeed very interested in divine inscriptions. Mu Rou laughed as she led the way. Although the two of them didn't interact much in the real world, spending most of their time in the dreamscape, they were still very familiar with each other and treated each other as good friends. The number of people surrounding the exhibition hall grew even more. Many grandmasters from the world of weaponsmiths rushed over, and when they saw the divine inscription painting, they were all extremely shocked. This was a subversive divine inscription. Not only that, this divine inscription seemed to be able to be broken down into multiple parts, yet it was still a complete entity. Many people had the impulse to take it for themselves and study it. However, in the Royal Academy, no one dared to make a move to snatch it away. Before Qin Wendian arrived at the exhibition hall, he already met with two familiar faces, Yi Zhan and Lu Yan. Yi Zhan halted his steps, as a cold light flickered in his eyes. However, the corners of his mouth still curled up in a smile as he glanced at Mu Rou. Mu Rou, so your relationship with Qin Wendian is actually so good. If this matter were to spread to the Mu clan, it wouldn't be good. What does it have to do with you? Mu Rou coldly replied as she swept a glance at Yi Zhan. Qin Wendian glanced at Lu Yan, his countenance extremely calm. In the past, he had mistakenly treated Lu Yan as his savior. Now that the misunderstanding had been cleared up, he was very calm. He couldn't stop Yi Zhan from being together with Lu Yan, but if Yi Zhan were to land in his hands, he wouldn't be polite. Is that so? Yi Zhan coldly laughed, as though he wanted to say something, only to hear Qin Wendian continuing, "You'd better shut your mouth." As the sound of his voice faded, a cold intent gushed forth from Qin Wendian as he lunged towards Yi Zhan, causing Yi Zhan's countenance to stiffen. Staring at Qin Wendian, he coldly laughed, "If it wasn't for the Emperor's Star Academy supporting you, would you still be alive today? If it wasn't for the Royal Academy, you would already be a dead man." Qin Wendian took a step forward, as a surge of pressure gushed forth, causing Yi Zhan's countenance to drastically change as he retreated 2 steps. "Let's go." Qin Wendian spoke to Mu Rou, only to see Mu Rou coldly staring at Yi Zhan. If you weren't born in the Yi clan, would you still be so arrogant? Everything he has achieved, he had to depend on himself. What qualifications do you have to say the word if? As she spoke, Mu Rou cast a glance at Lu Yen, who was standing at the side. "Your judgment really isn't that good." After which, she followed Qin Wendian into the exhibition hall, causing Yi Zhan's countenance to turn ashen. His originally gentle countenance now had traces of malevolence in it. "I really want to see how long more he can jump around," Yi Zhan coldly stated, as he held on to Lu Yan's hand. "He won't be able to go far. In the future, he won't be able to touch you." Lu Yan lightly nodded her head, as she also entered the exhibition hall. When Qin Wendian saw the painting, a sharp glint of light flashed in his eyes. This was a gift he had prepared for Mu Rou, yet Mu Rou didn't even know about it. Not only that, this gift had been displayed in the Royal Academy without their consent. If it was anyone else, they would surely be in an extremely bad mood. However, when Qin Wendian neared the painting, he was blocked by someone. That person stated, "Students are not allowed to go near it." Qin Wendian snorted. Something that belonged to him, yet he wasn't allowed to go near it. "He's from the Emperor's Star Academy, Qin Wendian." Yi Zhan's voice drifted over, and in an instant, the gazes of several people landed on Qin Wendian. Someone coldly laughed, "Qin Wendian from the Emperor's Star Academy, is he here to visit our Royal Academy? I heard that he's able to inscribe 3rd-level divine imprints, but I don't know if it's true or not. I'm afraid he's here to learn." The elders of the Royal Academy also turned their gazes towards Qin Wendian, only to hear one of them saying, "Since he's from the Emperor's Star Academy, stand at the back." The Royal Academy had always been in direct competition with the Emperor's Star Academy, especially since the Emperor's Star Academy was known as the #1 academy in the Chu country. Under such circumstances, the Royal Academy naturally felt enmity towards the Emperor's Star Academy. Not only that, this student of the Emperor's Star Academy was none other than Qin Wendian. Chapter 99. Qin Wendian could naturally feel the enmity emanating from the elder. However, he had no interest in the Royal Academy. But the Royal Academy had coveted his belongings. Qin Wendian advanced instead of retreating. He smiled, "There's no problem if you want to stand back. However, I want to bring my belongings away." "Your belongings?" That elder was none other than the teacher who had borrowed the divine inscription painting from Shui Yuan. He stared at Qin Wendian as he unhappily asked. "Yes, it's mine." Qin Wendian pointed to the divine inscription painting as he calmly replied. However, as the sound of his voice faded, it didn't cause the commotion he had imagined. Not only that, the crowd only froze for a moment as they cast a glance in his direction before shifting their gazes away. He said that the divine inscription painting displayed in the exhibition hall belonged to him. Wasn't this a joke? If it belonged to him, wouldn't the Royal Academy treat him as an esteemed guest when they exhibited his painting? Why would they stop him from getting close? Wasn't this an insult to the intelligence of the Royal Academy? This joke wasn't funny at all. In fact, it sounded a little cold. "Yours? Was it drawn by you?" That elder froze for a moment before asking in a mocking tone. "Yes." Qin Wendian honestly nodded his head. This painting was indeed drawn by him. Seeing that Qin Wendian actually nodded his head, the expressions on the faces of the crowd grew more and more interesting. It was as though this painting was really drawn by him. That elder contemplated Qin Wentian as a strange expression appeared on his face. Especially Qin Wentian's countenance. This divine inscription painting was something he had borrowed from Shui Yuan. Shui Yuan shouldn't have any interactions with Qin Wentian, so when did this painting belong to Qin Wentian? And what was even more ridiculous was that Qin Wentian said that he was the one who drew it. Are all the students of the Emperor Star Academy as shameless as you? That elder coldly spat out. Although his voice wasn't loud, it was filled with a sense of humiliation. Although Qin Wentian's status in the Emperor Star Academy was extremely high, he still dared to boast in such a manner in the Royal Academy. One couldn't help but say that he was simply seeking his own humiliation. Many people had moved their eyes away from Qin Wentian, but at this moment, they became interested again. This guy seemed to be quite humorous. Little fellow, I've heard rumors about you from my friends. You're a young genius from the Divine Weapon Pavilion who can inscribe third-level divine inscriptions. However, do you know what this human-shaped divine inscription signifies? With regards to this type of divine imprint, even a third-ranked grandmaster would find it difficult to inscribe it, let alone creating it. It's better for the younger generation to have some respect in their hearts. At the sight of the painting, a weaponsmith advised Qin Wentian, his tone filled with the tone of someone lecturing a junior. Upon hearing the words of this person, many in the world of weaponsmiths had expressions of respect on their faces. This old man was a third-ranked grandmaster, and his status was extremely high. Behind Qin Wentian, Mu Rou was somewhat depressed. What was wrong with this fellow, Qin Wentian? Walking forward, she tugged at the corner of Qin Wentian's robes as she softly said, "Let's go out for a walk." Qin Wentian shifted his gaze, looking at Mu Rou who was beside him. In a serious tone, he stated, "This painting is really mine. Not only that, it's the birthday present I gave you yesterday." Mu Rou froze. Looking at the serious expression on Qin Wentian's face, it didn't seem as though he was joking. Not only that, based on her understanding of Qin Wentian wouldn't joke about such a matter. In that case, what Qin Wentian said might be true. However, this painting that caused such a huge commotion in the Royal Academy, as well as the entire weaponsmithing world, was actually a birthday present given to her. Even Mu Rou, as the person in question, couldn't believe it. However, Mu Rou gradually believed in Qin Wentian. However, when Qin Wentian's words entered into the ears of others, it became an even bigger joke. A painting that could cause such a huge commotion was actually a birthday present? Aren't you afraid that the wind will cut your tongue? A birthday present? Ridiculous to the extreme. That teacher coldly snorted in disdain. Qin Wentian's words were getting more and more ridiculous. Even if you want to fabricate a reason, you should at least come up with something more convincing, right? At this moment, another voice drifted over. Qin Wentian turned his gaze over to the person who spoke. It was someone he was familiar with, Murin from the Star River Association. For someone like you, even a single glance at you would dirty my eyes, let alone fabricating a reason. Qin Wentian stared at Murin as he spoke. Every time he saw Murin's calm countenance that was tinged with a hint of arrogance, he couldn't help but think of the filthy soul hidden beneath her skin. If he had a choice, he wouldn't even bother to glance at Murin. Hence, he quickly shifted his gaze away from Murin. Since he didn't have the ability to make Murin pay for his actions in the past, he would do his best not to disgust himself. Upon hearing Qin Wentian's words, Murin's countenance instantly turned cold. After which, he coldly replied, "Not having the slightest bit of respect for your elders, only the Qin clan would be able to teach you. No wonder you're a traitor." Murin's words were even harsher and more venomous compared to Qin Wentian's. "After deceiving me to join the Star River Association, you betrayed me and my Qin clan to the Yi clan, coveting the divine imprints of the divine inscriptionists of the Sky Harmony City's Star River branch. It's hard to imagine that a person like you would actually hope for the respect of others. How thick is the skin on your face?" Qin Wentian shook his head as he spoke, not even bothering to glance at Murin. Murin furrowed his brows, while expressions of interest appeared on the faces of the surrounding crowd. However, the elder from the Royal Academy spoke again. I don't care how the Emperor Star Academy taught you, but this place is the Royal Academy. Our Royal Academy doesn't welcome a youth like you who doesn't know how to respect himself. The elder stared at Qin Wentian as he slowly continued, so, can you scram now? The elder from the Royal Academy had a condescending look on his face. After being a teacher for so many years, he had never seen such an arrogant student before. Not only that, Qin Wentian was also a student of the Emperor Star Academy. I do want to leave, but the problem is, your Royal Academy didn't seek my permission, and instead displayed my artwork here. And now, you want to chase me away. Qin Wentian had a serious expression on his face, causing many to be speechless. Not only that, the students of the Royal Academy had already started to jeer. I've never seen such a shameless person before. If I were him, I would have scrammed as far away as I could. Numerous voices rang out, none of them friendly. After all, this place was the Royal Academy. To Qin Wentian, this place was filled with hostility. Do you want me to chase you away? The elder took a step in the direction of Qin Wentian, as an intense pressure bore down on Qin Wentian. But at this moment, a radiant smile appeared on Qin Wentian's face. The Royal Academy represents the face of the royal clan. In the royal capital of the Chu country, it is second only to the Emperor Star Academy. I thought that in many matters, the Royal Academy would be magnanimous, but it seems like I was wrong. Qin Wentian stared at the elder as he slowly continued, of course, things will soon become clear. The more you act like this, the uglier the face of the Royal Academy will be. Looking at the serious expression on Qin Wentian's face, a few people started to waver. There was no reason for Qin Wentian to cause trouble here. Could it be that such a ridiculous matter was real? The Sky Transport Network is already investigating this matter. I believe that we will have an answer very soon. Qin Wentian continued. What nonsense! The elder coldly snorted. Since when did this have anything to do with the Sky Transport Network? At this moment, a group of silhouettes walked over. They were none other than the people from the Sky Transport Network. As they walked to the front of the crowd, they couldn't help but to silently curse the person in charge of the Royal Academy for being so muddle-headed. If the painting had been delivered to Muro, such a thing wouldn't have happened. In such a situation, if they were to expose the truth, where would the face of the Royal Academy be? Elder, can I speak with you for a moment? The person in charge of the Sky Transport Network asked the elder of the Royal Academy, causing the elder to frown, as though he felt something was amiss. If you have anything to say, just say it out loud. I'm looking for the Sky Transport Network to help me transport the painting. Now that such a thing has happened, do you really intend to settle this in secret? Qin Wentian calmly replied as he stared at the people walking over. Humph, the elder from the Emperor Star Academy coldly snorted, as he spoke to the person in charge of the Sky Transport Network. What's the matter? Just say it, there's no need to hide. The person in charge of the Sky Transport Network had an awkward expression on his face. After which, he bowed to Qin Wentian and the elder from the Royal Academy. This matter, the fault lies with my Sky Transport Network. Such a scene caused the crowd to feel that something was amiss. It was as though there was a problem with the origin of the painting. The Sky Transport Network was the first to apologize to both parties. As expected of one of the three largest networks in Chu. Elder, did this divine inscription painting originate from Shui Yuan of the Royal Academy? The person in charge of the Sky Transport Network inquired. Yes. The elder furrowed his brows, but he still nodded his head. If that's the case, then the owner of this painting should be Qin Wentian of the Emperor Star Academy. The person in charge once again bowed to the elder from the Royal Academy. However, at this moment, no one was paying attention to his actions. His voice was like a clap of thunder in the quiet space, causing many people's hearts to tremble violently. Was this a joke? If that was the case, then wasn't this a little too cold? Such a plot seemed to be a little too dramatic. Where would the royal school put its face? Especially when the voice of the elder from the Royal Academy was so powerful and resonant. Chapter 100. Shui Yuan had originally left, but as she strolled around the Royal Academy, she discovered that many people were heading towards the exhibition hall. It was said that there were students from the Emperor's Star Academy who dared to cause trouble, claiming that the divine inscription painting belonged to him. Such rumors caused Shui Yuan to panic, and she immediately rushed to the exhibition hall. After which, she heard the conversation between her teacher and Qin Wentian, as well as the arrival of the people from the Sky Transport Network. At this moment, she was in the midst of the crowd, and her countenance was slightly pale. Not only her, all the students from the Royal Academy had strange expressions on their faces as they stared at the person in charge of the Sky Transport Network. However, that person could only smile bitterly. He didn't expect that such a coincidental matter would lead to such a situation. You're not joking, right? The elder from the Royal Academy had a heavy expression on his face as he stated, "This divine inscription painting belongs to Shui Yuan, a student of our Royal Academy. I borrowed it from her. How would our Sky Transport Network dare to make a mistake? This painting was indeed delivered by us from Qin Wentian of the Emperor's Star Academy. Initially, we wanted to gift it to Miss Mu Rou, but because Miss Mu Rou wasn't in her residence, the person who delivered the painting asked Shui Yuan if she could help us keep it. Shui Yuan also agreed, and only then did we dare to let her keep it for us." That person bitterly smiled, causing the expressions of the crowd to stiffen. Did that mean that what Qin Wentian said was true? This painting was the gift he prepared for Mu Rou? Mu Rou's beautiful eyes shone with a strange light as she glanced at Qin Wentian. This fellow actually gave her such a valuable gift. However, she was extremely happy in her heart. After all, her birthday this year was exceptionally cold. Where is Shui Yuan? That elder swept his gaze over to the crowd, only to see Shui Yuan walking out with her head lowered. Her countenance was pale as she replied, "Teacher, this painting was indeed kept by me. I originally planned to return it to Mu Rou today." Seeing Shui Yuan admitting it, the last traces of doubt in the hearts of the crowd was completely dispelled. This divine inscription painting was actually in Qin Wentian's possession. The entire exhibition hall sank into a momentary silence. Mu Rou cast a glance at Shui Yuan, as a look of disappointment appeared on her face. No wonder Shui Yuan's attitude towards her suddenly changed. Who would have thought that Shui Yuan would be so shameless as to take the divine inscription painting that Qin Wentian had given her? You said that this divine inscription painting was inscribed by you. In that case, why don't you inscribe a painting right now to prove that what you said is true? After a moment of silence, the elder from the Royal Academy spoke again, as though he couldn't bring himself to lose face. Qin Wentian raised his eyebrows and looked at him with a strange expression. The Sky Transport Network came out to testify, and Shui Yuan admitted it herself. Yet, you still refuse to admit it. This is the first time I've met such a person. Qin Wentian sneered, "Why should I carve a painting for you to see? Do we know each other that well?" Hearing Qin Wentian's words, the other party was speechless and unable to refute. Those who were mocking Qin Wentian, at this moment, all shut their mouths. Earlier, the Royal Academy had humiliated Qin Wentian, but now, how resounding was the slap to his face. "May I ask the elder from the Royal Academy if I can retrieve my item now?" Qin Wentian indifferently asked as he walked towards the painting. Earlier, he was obstructed even when he approached the painting. Not only that, the other party even told him to stand at the back. And now, this painting was actually Qin Wentian's. Qin Wentian walked towards the divine inscription painting and rolled it up. However, at this moment, a weaponsmith beside him laughed, "Little brother, was this painting really inscribed by you?" "I don't know," Qin Wentian laughed. He also realized that he had underestimated the value of this painting. Since the other party was suspicious, he couldn't be bothered to say anything more. "Grandmaster Qin, my name is Yan Yi. If there's an opportunity, we can have an exchange." "Ha, Brother Qin, I'm a guest elder from the Divine Weapon Pavilion, Lu Feng. I've long heard of your name, I definitely have to get to know you. At this moment, several people walked up, as they politely greeted Qin Wentian. I don't dare to call myself Grandmaster, you can just call me Wentian. It's my fortune to be able to have an exchange with Senior. Qin Wentian smiled as he replied to the greetings of the people in the surroundings, appearing extremely humble. These people all had extraordinary statuses, and being able to get to know some of them naturally wouldn't be a bad thing. In the past, I didn't believe the rumors. How could a young man like him be able to inscribe a third-level divine inscription? But now that I've personally witnessed this painting, I finally understand that there's always someone stronger out there. I've truly grown old. An old man sighed as he continued, talent is truly a wondrous thing. I'm afraid this old man will never be able to inscribe a painting like this in my entire life. Indeed. In the future, don't be too proud of yourself. Wentian, did you create this painting yourself? Someone asked. At this moment, Qin Wentian was already surrounded by people, and he couldn't help but to smile bitterly in his heart. However, this scene caused those from the Royal Academy to feel even more embarrassed. Was this really the Royal Academy? How did it become Qin Wentian's home? Not only that, a group of seniors were all seeking his guidance and befriending him. The popularity of a powerful weaponsmith is truly terrifying. Many people silently speculated. In the Chu country, there was a saying, you can offend anyone, but you must never offend a powerful weaponsmith. It was rumored that in the royal capital of the Chu country, there was once a leader of a sect who humiliated a weaponsmith who was extremely strong in the art of weaponsmithing. Not long after, the leader of the sect was surrounded by a group of Yuanfu realm cultivators, and in a single night, his sect was annihilated. Even the leader of the sect was surrounded and killed, causing the entire Chu country to tremble. Due to a stroke of good fortune, I was able to comprehend something in my heart and inscribe it. My luck is pretty good. Qin Wentian replied with a smile. The countenances of the crowd didn't change, but they were even more shocked in their hearts. At this moment, they no longer doubted Qin Wentian's words. In the Chu country, it was true that no one had ever inscribed such a divine inscription before. Who would have thought that today, a young genius would be able to create such a miracle? Little brat, can you sell this divine inscription painting to me? At this moment, a voice abruptly drifted over. The crowd turned their gazes over, only to see that the person who spoke was an extremely ordinary-looking old man. However, those who knew him all had expressions of surprise on their faces. This old man was actually interested in this divine inscription painting. Yes, if you are willing to sell it, my Star River Association is willing to pay the price. Murin also spoke at this moment, causing Qin Wentian to glance at him. Murin didn't expect that this divine inscription painting was really inscribed by Qin Wentian. Thinking back to the time when he wanted to become Qin Wentian's disciple but was rejected by Qin Wentian, he couldn't help but feel hatred in his heart. That little brat from back then had actually grown so fast that it exceeded his expectations. If this continued, Qin Wentian would truly be a threat to him. As for this painting, Vice President Sui Yin had instructed him to obtain it no matter what. But what made him depressed was that this painting belonged to Qin Wentian. Hence, he could only brace himself and speak. You want it? Qin Wentian glanced at Murin. Murin nodded his head, as long as you say it, you can state any price you want. He believed that even if he had a grudge with Qin Wentian, it wouldn't hinder him from exchanging benefits. I want one of your arms. Are you willing to give it to me? Qin Wentian calmly asked Murin, causing Murin's countenance to instantly turn cold. Qin Wentian didn't look at him anymore. This arrogant Grandmaster Murin, sooner or later, he would make him pay for his actions in the past. That day wouldn't be too far away. Currently, in the world of weaponsmiths, he believed that he had already surpassed Murin. Qin Wentian stared at the person beside Murin as he continued, once, I sincerely wanted to become a guest elder of the Star River Association. However, this sincere heart of mine was coldly betrayed by Murin. Naturally, I believe that this has nothing to do with the Star River Association. Qin Wendian didn't continue speaking, but just this sentence alone caused Muren's heart to tighten. How ruthless Qin Wendian was. This sentence was extremely thought-provoking, and there were many interpretations behind it. For example, if he settled the matter regarding Muren, he could still become friends with the Star River Association. If the Star River Association really had the intention to recruit Qin Wendian, then not only would Muren not be able to use the Star River Association to deal with Qin Wendian, he would also have to be on guard against the Star River Association abandoning him because of Qin Wendian. After speaking, Muren glanced at the ordinary-looking old man as he smiled. I've made Senior wait for a long time. However, I've already given this painting to my friend, Muro. If I didn't guess wrongly, this painting should have been created when you were in a special state of mind. Even if you wanted to create another one, it wouldn't be easy. Not only that, the value of the first painting would definitely be the highest. Are you really willing to give it away? The old man's lips curled into a smile that was not a smile as he stared at Qin Wendian. Gifts to friends, how can they be valued? It's just a token of my sincerity. In addition, if it wasn't for some shameless people, this painting would have already landed in the hands of my friend. Don't tell me Senior wants me to take it back. Qin Wendian laughed. Naturally, if my friend is willing to sell it to Senior, I won't have any objections. After speaking, Qin Wendian turned and passed the painting over to Muro. He smiled. Although there were some mistakes, I should be able to make up for my mistake by personally giving this to you. Muro lowered her head slightly, and when she raised her head, her eyes were slightly red. This painting had caused such a huge commotion, and Muro was naturally clear of its value. Under such circumstances, Qin Wendian, who had only met her a few times, still chose to give it to her as a birthday gift. Yet, her own clan was actually so cold towards her. How could Muro not feel touched? Thank you. Muro didn't reject. She smiled radiantly as she received the painting from Qin Wendian's hands. This friendship was heavy, yet it caused one to feel warmth in their hearts. What are you thanking me for? Back then, under such circumstances, you still recognized me as your friend. Qin Wendian laughed. What he was referring to was naturally that day at the banquet, when everyone was hostile towards Qin Wendian. Despite the immense pressure, Muro still told everyone that Qin Wendian was her friend. At that time, Qin Wendian told himself that he would definitely repay what he owed today in the future. Chapter 101. The crowd in the exhibition hall personally witnessed Qin Wendian gifting the painting to Muro, as they couldn't help but sigh in their hearts. This fellow was truly willing to part with the painting, causing many to feel jealous of Muro. Naturally, such a scene also proved Qin Wendian's words. This divine inscription painting was indeed inscribed by him. If not, why would he gift it to someone else? The Mu residence has given birth to a good lass. An elder smiled and nodded to Muro. Upon seeing this elder, Muro couldn't help but be startled. This elder had an extraordinary status in the royal capital. Not only him, there were many people here today who all had extraordinary statuses. There were even quite a few third-ranked grandmasters among them. Ha, lass from the Mu residence, not bad. Another person laughed. Muro bowed to those who spoke, showing her respect. Momentarily, Muro became the focal point of the crowd. Such a scene caused Muro to feel even more moved in her heart. Lass Mu, sell this painting to me. That ordinary-looking elder spoke again. His voice wasn't loud, but as the sound of his voice faded, there seemed to be a mysterious energy that suppressed all the noises in the great hall. Muro glanced at that elder. She could tell from the attitude of the surrounding weaponsmiths towards this elder that this person was definitely not an ordinary person. She couldn't help but cast a glance at Qin Wendian. Lass, you should understand the logic of treasuring a jade ring a crime. Even as an elder of the Royal Academy, I'm afraid that even you, an elder of the Royal Academy, would covet this painting, let alone others. If this painting were to be placed in your possession, it would only bring you undeserved calamity. That elder continued. Although his words weren't very pleasing to the ears, there was indeed some logic behind it. The countenance of the elder of the Royal Academy changed, becoming somewhat unsightly. Today, he had truly lost all his face. Mu Rou fell silent. This was a birthday gift from Qin Wentian. From the standpoint of a friend, it wasn't good for her to use this gift to exchange for wealth. However, just like what the elder had said, even if she wanted to keep this gift, would she be able to keep it? Not to mention these outsiders, even her clan would probably order her to hand it over. If that was the case, how could she not comply? When Qin Wentian saw Mu Rou looking at him, he gave her a slight nod. Qin Wentian had already experienced the viciousness of the human heart. If this painting had not been exposed, perhaps it would not have been a big deal. However, since it had caused such a huge commotion, it was indeed a disaster and not a blessing for Mu Rou to keep this gift. Mu Rou understood Qin Wentian's gaze. She said, "This gift is of great significance to me. What does Senior intend to use to exchange for it?" The old man stared at Mu Rou. Seeing that Mu Rou had relented, he pondered for a moment before saying, "In exchange for a promise from me, you can ask me to do something for you in the future." If it was someone else who said this, the crowd would probably laugh out loud. However, after the old man finished speaking, the entire place became exceptionally quiet. Especially those who knew the old man's identity, they were even more shocked. Sometimes, a promise was worth more than any amount of wealth. This was especially true for a promise from this old man. At this moment, no one dared to fight with the old man. Mu Rou's eyes narrowed. Just as she was hesitating, a voice rang out, "Mu Rou, agree to him." The owner of this voice walked to Mu Rou's side. Upon seeing him, Mu Rou's expression turned into one of shock. "Father." Mu Rou's father nodded. "Agree to him." "Okay." Seeing the solemn expression on her father's face, Mu Rou turned to the old man and said, "Senior, I agree." The old man lightly nodded his head before saying to her, "Your clan members should know how to find me." "Okay." Mu Rou stepped forward and handed the painting over to the old man. After receiving the painting, the old man glanced at Qin Wentian as a hint of a smile appeared in his eyes. "The younger generation will surpass us in time. Little fellow, work hard and your future will be boundless. If you have the time, you can come and chat with this old man often." The old man nodded his head at Qin Wentian before he left. However, the words he said before he left caused great waves to surge in the hearts of many. The first half of the sentence indicated that he was optimistic about Qin Wentian's future, while the second half indicated that Qin Wentian could look for him at any time. The crowd was extremely clear on what this meant. One must know that there were some third-ranked weaponsmiths among them, but even if they went to the old man's doorstep and requested to see him, they might not even be able to see him. But before the old man left, he told Qin Wentian that if he had the time, Qin Wentian could look for him and chat with him. Other than shock, many people also felt that it was a pity. That topsy-turvy divine inscription painting, they would never have the chance to see it again in the future. Unless, Qin Wentian was able to create another painting that was similar to this one. "Mu Rou, you have suffered a lot during these few days. Come back to the clan with me," Mu Rou's father spoke to Mu Rou. Glancing at her father, Mu Rou seemed to be somewhat unwilling. "Don't worry, we will compensate you for all the resources the clan has deprived you of." Mu Rou's father laughed, causing Mu Rou's expression to stiffen. Was this all because of a promise from the old man? Or more accurately, was it because of Qin Wentian? "Okay." Mu Rou glanced at Qin Wentian, "I will return first." Qin Wentian nodded his head with a smile. Mu Rou's father also smiled and nodded to Qin Wentian, before bringing Mu Rou away from the place. Since the matter here was concluded, Qin Wentian also prepared to leave. There were many people here who didn't welcome him. However, before he left, Qin Wentian's gaze landed on the elder of the Royal Academy, as he calmly spoke. I have something to say to you. Are all the teachers of the Royal Academy as shameless as you? After saying this, Qin Wendian stepped out, heading towards the exit. This sentence was obviously directed at the humiliating words spoken by the elder earlier. Are all the students of the Emperor Star Academy as shameless as you? This humiliating sentence included the entire Emperor Star Academy. Naturally, Qin Wendian would remember it. But now, his words were like a resounding slap to the elder's face. Not long ago, Qin Wendian had said that the divine inscription painting belonged to him. However, despite the Royal Academy making things difficult for him and humiliating him, Qin Wendian remained calm and indifferent. The truth would give these people the best response. Now that the truth had been revealed, Qin Wendian's words were the most powerful. Not only was it a slap to the elder's face, it also caused those who had humiliated Qin Wendian to lose all face. This time around, they had truly lost all face. As Qin Wendian spoke, he walked out. The crowd automatically opened up a path for him, as several elders clustered around Qin Wendian, chatting with him. Among them, there were many who had encountered bottlenecks in their comprehension of divine inscriptions, and it was extremely difficult for them to break through. Now that there was a young man with extraordinary attainments in divine inscriptions, if they could become friends and exchange their experiences in the future, it would be of great help to them. Not long ago, this lonely young man now had an unknowingly elevated status. Even in the Royal Academy, it was still so. If this was any other place, and considering the talent of this young man, it would be even more admirable. Yi Zhan and Lu Yen stood together, as they personally witnessed Qin Wendian walking past them. However, Qin Wendian had a smile on his face as he chatted with the people around him. He didn't even cast a glance at them. Maybe, they no longer had the qualifications to attract Qin Wendian's attention. The arrogance they had when they first arrived was now completely shattered. Especially Lu Yen, at this moment, she lowered her head and didn't say anything. Maybe, they were people from different worlds. Yi Zhan's countenance was filled with rage, so much so that his expression was contorted. In truth, Qin Wendian had never interacted with him before, nor had he ever humiliated him. His rage and contortion might have originated from the fact that his pride had been ruthlessly trampled on, yet he was unwilling to admit this inferiority complex in his heart. What did he, Yi Zhan, count for? In the Yi clan, there were many more outstanding youths that were more outstanding than him. If he left the Yi clan, he might be nothing. But now, looking at Qin Wendian's glory, just based on his own hard work and talent, Yi Zhan was no match for him. This kind of comparison caused Yi Zhan to feel a sense of inferiority in the depths of his heart, yet he suppressed this feeling of inferiority. In fact, he had never thought that Qin Wendian would never compare himself to him. In Qin Wendian's eyes, he, Yi Zhan, was never an important character. Other than Yi Zhan, Gretchen, who was standing behind Murin, also had a similar feeling. She had once looked down on Qin Wendian. She was once a lofty existence. But now, in front of Qin Wendian, she could only stand behind Murin and watch Qin Wendian blossom with his brilliance. That self-satisfied pride of hers, in front of Qin Wendian, wasn't even worth mentioning. His combat prowess had long been proven. As for his talent in weaponsmithing, that divine inscription painting was more than enough to shatter the pride in her heart. The people from the Sky Transport Network apologized and silently left. Shui Yuan stood there, not daring to speak. The elder from the Royal Academy stared at her, his countenance ashen as he angrily berated, "This is your fault." At this moment, it was as though he wanted to vent all the humiliation he had suffered on this student, using this as a pretext to redeem his own face in front of everyone. Shui Yuan lowered her head in shame, not daring to speak. In fact, although she was in the wrong in this matter, the elder had no qualifications to criticize her. As an elder of the Royal Academy, how could she not agree to the divine inscription painting? As for what happened after that, it was all the elder's own decision. It had nothing to do with her. Mu Rou could criticize her, but this elder had no grounds to do so. However, in this world, there was no such thing as logic. No matter how severe the elder's criticism was, as an ordinary student of the Royal Academy, she could only accept it. Wasn't this a form of sorrow? Chapter 102. Qin Wendian walked towards the exit of the Royal Academy. Behind him, Little Rascal leisurely followed. At the same time, there were several silhouettes in Qin Wendian's surroundings. The person closest to him was none other than the guest elder of the Divine Weapon Pavilion, Lu Feng. Since he was from the Divine Weapon Pavilion, he naturally felt closer to him. Senior Lu Feng, what was the identity of that old man earlier? Qin Wendian curiously asked. That old man looked extremely ordinary, but he had used a promise to take away the painting that everyone wanted. Not only that, at that time, there wasn't a single person who fought with him over it. Naturally, Qin Wendian discovered this abnormality. I was just about to tell you about this. You should know about the Junlin banquet, right? Lu Feng asked Qin Wendian. It's the grandest event of the year in Chu. Qin Wendian nodded. That's right. In Chu, the Junlin banquet is an extremely important event. During the Junlin banquet, the talent of the youths could be clearly seen with a single glance. And every year, the top rankers of the Junlin banquet would all have a glorious future. The majority of them had all left Chu. Lu Feng slowly continued, that old man's name is Gang Hong. Nowadays, it's very rare for the youths to hear his name. But 30 years ago, he was a genius of the younger generation. If I didn't remember wrongly, the top ranker of the Junlin banquet was none other than Gang Hong. Qin Wendian's heart trembled slightly. The top ranker of the Junlin banquet? Not only that, it was a character from 30 years ago. Why does he look so old? Qin Wendian asked in bewilderment. For cultivators, if one's essence, qi, spirit, and blood were strong, they would all appear extremely youthful. Gang Hong wasn't even 60 years old, so he should have the appearance of a middle-aged man. Nobody knows about this. Gang Hong is a legendary character. Back then, he obtained the top ranker of the Junlin banquet, and the 9 Mystical Palace wanted to recruit him as a disciple. After speaking till here, Lu Feng glanced to his left and right, before continuing in a low voice. However, Gang Hong was someone who loved freedom and didn't agree. After obtaining the title of champion, he directly left Chu. By right, this matter should have come to an end. For those who left Chu, it was extremely rare for news to be transmitted back. However, just a few years ago, Gang Hong returned to Chu. Not only that, despite not having any experience in forging weapons during his youth, he actually had extraordinary attainments in the Tao of Divine Inscriptions. He personally inscribed divine inscriptions a total of 3 times, and all 3 times, the divine weapons he forged were all peak-tier, 3rd-rank divine weapons. This matter caused quite a commotion in the past, and the aura of a legendary legend was also instilled into the minds of many. Currently, not only does he have extraordinary achievements in the Tao of Divine Inscriptions, his personal strength is also unfathomably deep. Lu Feng sighed as he spoke. He had a lot of respect for Qin Wendian. Hearing this, Lu Feng gradually understood. A promise from such a character was truly extraordinary. Mu Ro's father immediately got Mu Ro to agree. In the future, if the Mu clan encountered any problems they couldn't resolve, Gang Hong's promise was equivalent to a path. Wendian, if there's an opportunity, you should pay a visit to Gang Hong and exchange insights on the Tao of Divine Inscriptions. Lu Feng smiled. He used the word exchange, evidently placing Qin Wendian on an extremely high pedestal. Where does Senior Gang stay? Qin Wendian asked. The Bamboo Lodge. Lu Feng laughed. In the royal capital of Chu, there was only a single place named the Bamboo Lodge, and it was precisely the place where Gang Hong stayed. This wasn't a secret, and those who knew of Gang Hong's identity were all very clear about this. There would often be people who went to the Bamboo Lodge to pay a visit to Gang Hong, but only a very few would be able to meet him. Can you bring me there? Qin Wendian smiled, his words causing Lu Feng's countenance to stiffen. You want to go there just like that? With such an esteemed senior, I would have to pay a visit sooner or later. Why don't I familiarize myself with the place first? Qin Wendian replied with a smile. Lu Feng naturally wouldn't reject such a request. After exiting the Royal Academy, Qin Wendian bid farewell to the surrounding crowd and left together with Lu Feng. The divine inscription painting that Qin Wendian had inscribed had already caused quite a commotion in the royal capital, especially in the world of weaponsmiths. And weaponsmiths had always been the target of the various powers in the royal capital. Hence, countless pairs of eyes were paying close attention to the matters of the Royal Academy. Nobody could have predicted that the ending would be so unexpected. Qin Wendian once again entered the sights of the various major powers. Back then, when the young man stood amidst the snowstorm, with the Emperor's Star Academy and the Divine Weapon Pavilion standing behind him, the various major powers were already filled with curiosity towards Qin Wendian. And this time around, Qin Wendian's performance had once again attracted a great deal of attention. Many of the major powers started to seriously investigate Qin Wendian. Although Qin Wendian's background seems simple, how did he become a genius in the field of divine inscriptions? Were there any secrets on Qin Wendian's body? In the Mu residence, in front of a desk, an old man had a scroll in front of him. There were some words written on it, and the words were, Qin Wendian, adopted son of Qin Chuan. His family background is unknown. When he was young, he was brought to the Qin residence by a crippled butler, and grew up there. At the age of 6, it was discovered that there was a problem with his meridians, causing him to be unable to cultivate. At the age of 13, he was betrothed to Autumn Snow of the Bai clan. At the age of 16, the Bai clan annulled the betrothal, and Qin Wendian began to cultivate, releasing his heavenly hammer astral soul from the third heavenly layer. There wasn't much information written on this scroll, but it was enough to encompass Qin Wendian's entire life. It was a very simple life, so simple that there wasn't much information. Only after he entered the royal capital did the information become more plentiful. The old man lifted his brush, and added a line of words at the end of the scroll. Genius in divine inscriptions, able to create his own third-level divine inscriptions. His comprehension ability, monstrous. After writing this line of words, the old man placed the brush down, only to see a butler standing outside the door. What's the matter? The old man asked in a low voice. Miss Moreau has returned. The butler replied in a low voice. The old man inclined his head, and asked in a low voice, was Moreau's birthday yesterday? Yes. The butler nodded his head. Prepare a family banquet. The old man calmly stated, the scale of the banquet can be moderate, and the Mu clan can celebrate together. But it must have the warmth of a family. Yes. The butler nodded his head, and bowed as he retreated. In one of the rooms in the O residence, a silhouette stood in front of a study table, looking at the scroll in front of him, as a look of contemplation flashed in his eyes. This was a middle-aged man, and he looked cultured and refined, just like an ordinary scholar. The name on the scroll was also Qin Wendian. Once, he didn't pay much attention to this name, even if he hoped that the owner of this name would die sooner. A youth that originated from the Sky Harmony City, although he had extraordinary talent, he still had reason to believe that with Orkan, Yanaro, and the others in the Emperor's Star Academy, it would be easy for them to make this genius disappear. However, the growth of this genius was too fast, so fast that he attracted the attention of the Emperor's Star Academy in such a short period of time. And now, he was even protected by the will of the Emperor's Star Academy. Now, it seemed that it wouldn't be so easy to get rid of this youth. How confident are we in killing him? The middle-aged man asked in a low voice, 100%. Behind him, a silhouette calmly replied. It was as though as long as the middle-aged man nodded his head, he would be able to guarantee that Qin Wendian would become a dead man. What's the probability of the Emperor's Star Academy finding out about this? The middle-aged man asked again. Directly assassinate him, 90%. That person replied, as accurate as before. In that case, reduce this probability to less than 10% before we act. Naturally, if we can borrow the hands of others to do it, that would be for the best. The middle-aged man faintly stated. 90% was simply courting death. He wouldn't do such a risky thing. If it wasn't for the fact that Qin Wendian's growth was too fast, he wouldn't even think of doing this. The Yi clan should be even more anxious than him. Right. The person behind him replied. If we borrow the hands of others, we absolutely cannot allow the Emperor's Star Academy to find out about us. There must not be even the slightest possibility. The middle-aged man seemed to have thought of something as he added. No one was willing to go against the will of the Emperor's Star Academy. Even the royal clan had to give the Emperor's Star Academy enough face at times. The weight of his O clan naturally wasn't enough. He believed that as long as he gave the command, the person behind him would definitely do it well. After so many years, everything he did was done to perfection. The Junlin banquet was about to arrive. He hoped that Chen would be able to obtain a good result this time around. Chapter 103. In the outskirts of the royal capital of Chu, there was a tranquil bamboo forest. This bamboo forest was situated right next to a mountain peak in the dark forest, and was exceptionally tranquil. Qin Wendian and Lu Feng arrived at this place. They stared at the verdant bamboo forest ahead, filled with an exuberant aura of life. We've arrived, but I'm unable to accompany you in. Lu Feng bitterly smiled. No one would dare to barge into this bamboo forest without permission. Qin Wendian nodded his head lightly. Carrying little rascal in his arms, he took a step forward as he called out, Junior Qin Wendian pays his respects to Senior Jemyang. Come in. From within the bamboo forest, an ethereal voice drifted out. Qin Wendian only saw that the bamboo forest ahead of him actually began to move. Amidst the swaying green bamboo, there was actually a small pathway. I'll take my leave first. Lu Feng smiled at Qin Wendian. Many thanks. Qin Wendian nodded his head, sending Lu Feng off with his gaze. After which, he himself followed the small pathway and entered the bamboo forest. This pathway was extremely deep. After walking for some time, Qin Wendian finally saw a simple hut in front of him. It was quiet and peaceful, as though it was isolated from the rest of the world. What a wondrous place. Qin Wendian sighed in his heart. After arriving at the hut, he saw Jemyang Hong sitting there, as though he was drawing something. In front of him, there were several scrolls of paintings. The inscriptions on them were extremely peculiar, as though they were all divine inscriptions. Senior Jemyang. Qin Wendian bowed to show his respect. Little brat, you came so quickly. Come over and take a look at this painting. Jemyang Hong spoke to Qin Wendian. Qin Wendian nodded his head as he sat down on the stool. After which, Gung Hong retrieved a painting scroll and passed it to him, causing Qin Wendian's countenance to stiffen. The painting scroll that Gung Hong passed to him was actually in the form of a human. Senior, this is? Qin Wendian asked. Naturally, it's a divine inscription painting. How long do you need to comprehend it? Jemyang Hong asked to Qin Wendian. Qin Wendian furrowed his brows when he heard the other party's words as he stared at the painting. There seemed to be the figure of a beautiful woman in the painting. The figure pointed her finger forward, and there seemed to be an endless aura gushing out. Buzz! Qin Wendian's mind trembled violently. He put down the scroll, his heart pounding. I'm afraid that this painting has already reached the level of a 4th-ranked divine inscription. It's impossible for me to comprehend it within a short period of time. Qin Wendian stared at Gung Hong as he asked, was this inscribed by Senior? I don't have that level of comprehension. Gung Hong shook his head and didn't say anything else. How did you inscribe your divine inscription paintings? Gung Hong asked Qin Wendian. In a special state of comprehension, I wanted to infuse my own energy into the divine inscription painting, and under a stroke of luck, I was able to inscribe that painting, replied Qin Wendian. Infuse your own energy into the painting? Gung Hong stared at Qin Wentian, as a strange light flickered in his calm eyes. Yes. Sometimes, I wonder if divine inscriptions are a type of innate techniques, and if there are any similarities between the two. Qin Wentian nodded his head. However, his casual words caused Gung Hong's body to tremble violently, as great waves rocked his heart. For a moment, he stood there in a daze. Divine inscriptions, innate techniques. Gung Hong's body started to tremble. Comprehending the painting. Innate techniques, innate techniques. Gung Hong seemed to have grasped something, as his eyes stared fixedly at the painting in front of Qin Wentian. If this is an innate technique, what kind of innate technique would it be? Gung Hong murmured in a low voice. His entire person seemed to have changed. He who had been quiet all this while, had turned into a daze as he stared at the painting. Fourth-rank divine inscriptions were countless times more complicated compared to third-rank divine inscriptions. Even Qin Wentian had no way to unravel them. In fact, as long as he immersed his consciousness into the divine inscription, he would feel a tyrannical aura gushing towards him. Only to see Qin Wentian sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed. Circulating the dreamcast art within his body, he stepped into the dreamscape, and instantly, he appeared on the sandy beach once again. In front of Qin Wentian, there was still the human-shaped painting he had seen earlier. In my dreamscape, let's transform. Qin Wentian's intent fluctuated, as the human-shaped divine inscription painting transformed into a humanoid figure that attacked forward. Currently, Qin Wentian had no way to deduce an innate technique from this painting. However, he could use Dreamcast to cause the divine inscription painting to undergo various transformations. After that, he could deduce which of these transformations would be more compatible with the essence of the painting. After testing out hundreds and thousands of transformations, Qin Wentian discovered that if he treated this divine inscription painting as an innate technique, it would contain an endless amount of energy, as though it would never be extinguished. A single attack would have an endless amount of energy. After exiting the dreamscape, Qin Wentian saw that Gung Hong was still in that dazed state. Abruptly, Gung Hong seemed to have awoken as he stared at Qin Wentian. Use the energy you sensed from this divine inscription to attack me. Quick. Gung Hong's state caused Qin Wentian to be taken aback. This divine inscription painting must be extremely important to him. As he thought of this, he stood up and stabbed out with his finger. The air trembled as his finger landed on Gung Hong's body. However, Qin Wentian felt as though he had struck an impenetrable wall. There was no way for him to move Gung Hong. Finger technique, stacking layers of attacks. There's no such innate technique, there's no such thing. Gung Hong's eyes flashed with a hint of struggle. Senior, this must be a finger technique. What I've comprehended is only the tip of the iceberg. Maybe it's a spear technique or a sword technique, but within it, there's definitely an endless cycle of growth and multiplication. Qin Wentian spoke. Spear technique. Sword technique. Endless amount of energy. Gung Hong sank into deep contemplation. After a long time, he abruptly stepped to the side as he stabbed out with his sword. In front of him, a howl of rage could be heard, capable of destroying everything. The hurricane formed by the sword tore through the air, transforming into a terrifying whirlwind. Swishing sounds rang out as the green bamboos in front of him were directly torn apart. Is it this kind of sword technique? Gung Hong stared at Qin Wentian. It's highly possible. Qin Wentian felt his heart trembling as he sensed the sword intent. Gung Hong's strength was truly terrifying. 9 swords of breath, this is the 9 swords of breath. Gung Hong was extremely agitated as he glanced at Qin Wentian. After which, Gung Hong dashed into his hut. A moment later, Qin Wentian saw Gung Hong taking out another 3 divine inscriptions paintings as he passed them to Qin Wentian. Quick, help me take a look. Tell me the intent contained within them. Gung Hong himself was an extremely powerful weaponsmith. His attainments in the Tao of divine inscriptions were naturally extremely high. However, at this moment, he had completely lost his composure. What kind of painting would cause Gung Hong to fall into such a state of frenzy? Okay. Qin Wendian nodded his head as he took the second painting. This painting was still that of a silhouette waving his hand. There was nothing special about it, yet it seemed as though a terrifying energy was contained within it. Qin Wendian once again entered the dreamscape, trying to find out the various variations of the painting. After which, he tried to converse with Gung Hong. However, Gung Hong was still unable to find the corresponding innate technique. Senior, maybe this innate technique is something you have never cultivated before. Qin Wendian looked at Gung Hong as he spoke. Impossible, absolutely impossible. If it's really as you said, and there's an innate technique hidden within the divine inscriptions, I would definitely know about it. I've never cultivated the 9 swords of breath before. Gung Hong resolutely replied. He followed Qin Wendian's instructions and continuously unleashed over 100 different innate techniques, destroying a large portion of the bamboo forest in front of him. Senior Gung knows too many innate techniques. Even if he hasn't cultivated them before, he's still able to imitate the intent contained within. How terrifying! Qin Wendian's heart trembled. However, at this moment, he glanced at the painting again as he mumbled in a low voice, maybe, this painting itself is a type of innate technique that contains many variations? What did you say? Gung Hong seemed to have grasped something when he heard Qin Wendian's words. Senior, maybe, this innate technique itself contains variations? Qin Wendian spoke again. Gung Hong drew in a deep breath as he took a step forward and stretched out his palms. This time around, he didn't do anything, but the feeling he gave Qin Wendian was that he would be able to unleash all sorts of variations. Yes, Senior, I'm very close. This is the feeling I have. Qin Wendian's eyes brightened. Formless innate technique, Gung Hong murmured. He then turned to Qin Wendian, let's take a look at the next painting. Qin Wendian nodded his head. The third painting actually had an extremely beautiful posture, it didn't seem like an innate technique at all. The two of them discussed for a long time as the sky gradually darkened. Yet, there was still no conclusion. The two of them didn't sleep for the entire night, they were still discussing. Finally, Gung Hong used an extremely compatible movement. Although it didn't have any charm to it, and was even extremely awkward, it still caused Qin Wendian's eyes to brighten. There's a high possibility that this is it. This is the starting stance of a movement technique, it's named the connecting steps, and it contains many variations. Gung Hong murmured as he continued, there's only one more painting left. Qin Wendian nodded his head as he started to comprehend the last painting. This painting had the silhouette of a man, and he was just standing there. Only his eyes were extraordinary. Gung Hong only glanced at it a few times before he sighed, I've only understood the first 3 innate techniques, but I've never cultivated them before. But for the 4th innate technique, I know what it is. It's the eyes of death. As the sound of Gung Hong's voice faded, his eyes deepened, causing Qin Wendian's heart to tremble. However, an instant later, Gung Hong's eyes returned to normal. This is one of the innate techniques I'm most proficient in. As for the 9 swords of life, it was her favorite innate technique. As for the formless innate technique and the connecting steps, I've also heard of them before. But why did I only understand today? The 4 paintings contained 4 types of innate techniques. Gung Hong drew in a deep breath as he stared at the skies. 9 swords of life, eyes of death, formless innate technique, connecting steps. Qin Wendian murmured, life, death, no, wait, no, it should be, life, death, interdependent. Qin Wendian's words entered Gung Hong's ears, yet they were akin to a bolt of lightning, directly blasting into his mind, causing him to stiffen on the spot, as though he had stopped thinking. At this moment, Qin Wendian felt an oppressive aura. This entire space was so quiet that it was terrifying. Interdependent, ha ha ha, interdependent. Gung Hong, you will die a horrible death. Abruptly, Gung Hong howled in rage as he coughed out a mouthful of fresh blood. His heart was overwhelmed with anger as he collapsed onto the ground. His eyes were still wide open, and in those deep eyes of his, there was boundless regret and despair. Chapter 104. Senior. Upon seeing this scene, Qin Wentian's heart trembled as he exclaimed in shock. Squatting down, he wanted to check on the condition of Gung Hong's injuries. However, he only saw Gung Hong waving his hands, his eyes still staring at the empty space. His empty eyes were filled with despair, grief, regret, pain, and all sorts of other negative emotions. Anyone who looked at him would be able to feel the deep sorrow in his heart. Senior, please take care of yourself. Qin Wentian sighed in his heart when he saw the expression in Gung Hong's eyes. He knew that Senior Gung must have had an extraordinary past. Living and dying together, 20+ years, everything was wrong. I wholeheartedly wanted to comprehend the divine inscriptions within the 4 paintings, and because of this, I started to study divine inscriptions. But sadly, I was wrong from the start. Gung Hong's voice was filled with helplessness and sorrow, as though he was mumbling to himself. If I knew that she didn't want me to comprehend the divine inscriptions, and only wanted me to unravel the 4 innate techniques within the 4 paintings, I believed that I would at most need half a year's time to unravel them. After all, I've seen and recognized these 4 innate techniques before. In fact, I might even be able to unravel them within 2 to 3 months. Time was more than enough, but I still spent over 20 years. Gung Hong continued. Qin Wentian knew that Gung Hong was right. If Gung Hong knew that the 4 innate techniques contained within the 4 paintings, based on his experience and comprehension, half a year would be more than enough. After all, he was familiar with the 4 innate techniques, and was even able to unleash them. However, Gung Hong's direction was completely wrong. I've always claimed to be carefree and unrestrained, but in reality, I'm inferior, cowardly, and cold-blooded. I've let you down. A teardrop rolled down from the corner of Gung Hong's eyes. He laid there like a dead man. There was nothing more sorrowful than a dead heart. His heart, at this moment, was as cold as ice. At this moment, Qin Wentian saw Gung Hong's disheveled hair slowly turning white, causing his heart to tremble. Senior, it's already been over 20 years. Why must you do this? Qin Wentian persuaded. What kind of despair and agony could cause one's hair to turn white in an instant? In an instant, the black hair on Gong Sun Hong's head turned silver. Gong Sun Hong seemed to have aged tens of years in an instant. With his eyes closed, Qin Wentian sat beside him, not knowing what to say. The she he was talking about should be a woman. Otherwise, why would he leave behind the words "will stick together in life and death"? However, what Qin Wentian didn't understand was that since the woman had such deep feelings for him, why didn't she tell Gung Hong to his face, leaving behind decades of regret and misunderstanding? Gung Hong closed his eyes, as though he had lost all signs of life. Qin Wentian sighed, but didn't disturb him. He sat down not far away from Gung Hong and didn't leave, as he was worried that something might have happened to Gung Hong. Very swiftly, another night arrived as astral light cascaded down from the heavens, landing on Qin Wentian's body. In his dreams, he was currently cultivating. His entire person was bathed in the astral light, tranquil and peaceful. Bits of astral energy unceasingly flowed into his body, circulating through his arterial pathways and acupoints, circulating through the heavenly cycle. At this moment, Gung Hong opened his eyes. He inclined his head and stared at the starlight in the sky, as an intense sense of disappointment could be seen in his eyes. Everything is your own doing. Gung Hong stared at the empty space as he murmured in his heart. Back then, she was extremely talented and had countless pursuers. Although you appeared to be confident and at ease, didn't you feel inferior in your heart? If you didn't feel inferior, why didn't you feel that way after spending so much time with her? Could it be that you couldn't sense her feelings for you? Back then, she rejected 18 marriage proposals, and those she rejected were all demon-level geniuses from the various great sections. None of them were inferior to you, so why did she reject them? Why did she tell you all these? But, you felt inferior, useless, and didn't even dare to open your mouth to express your feelings. Back then, everyone was jealous of you. Why were they jealous? Because she was only close to you, and because of jealousy, she heavily injured you. Because of this, she begged her father for medicine for you. But on the 19th marriage proposal, she maintained her silence. Could it be that you really couldn't see the reason behind it? Even when she came to see you for the last time, you still didn't open your mouth to express anything. You didn't say anything at all. She left behind 4 paintings, and gave you a year's time. Even if you didn't comprehend the paintings in this 1 year, as long as you opened your mouth, she would still choose to leave with you regardless of the price. Because of these 4 words, together in life and death. But, you still didn't. You personally witnessed her getting married to someone else, and even stared at her with indifference in your eyes, watching everything unfold. Could it be that you couldn't see the despair and coldness in her eyes when she looked at you? Gung Hong, you truly deserve to die. Gung Hong thought back to the events that happened over 20 years ago. In his heart, there was only pain. He stared at the night sky in a daze, lonely and desolate. The morning air was slightly damp. In the bamboo forest ahead, sparkling and translucent dewdrops could be seen. Qin Wendian opened his eyes, only to see Gung Hong sitting there. Gung Hong's silvery hair draped over his shoulders, causing him to appear exceptionally old. Qin Wendian called out, "Senior. You're awake." Gung Hong turned his gaze over, as he smiled at Qin Wendian, as though he had just woken up from the madness he experienced yesterday. This caused Qin Wendian to silently heave a sigh of relief. Qin Wendian nodded his head. How did you manage to link divine imprints and innate techniques together? Gung Hong curiously asked. Back then, she was also a heaven-defying genius, and was proficient in divine imprints. 20 years ago, she was able to inscribe 4 paintings for him. This was the best proof. Not only that, she was the same as Qin Wendian, and had long since discovered the connection between divine imprints and innate techniques. It was also a stroke of inspiration. I cultivated a type of innate technique before, and I needed to borrow the power of divine imprints. After that, I gained some insights into divine imprints, and unknowingly, I managed to link the 2 together. Qin Wendian smiled as he replied. Gung Hong stared at the clean smile on the young man's face, and involuntarily thought back to the time when he was young. Sadly, he had wasted over 20 years of his life, and the only thing left behind was regret. If you meet a girl that can move your heart, don't miss this opportunity. You must take the initiative to speak to her. Gung Hong abruptly spoke to Qin Wendian, causing Qin Wendian to be stunned. Wasn't this sudden change a little too great? Smiling foolishly, Qin Wendian nodded his head, okay. However, up until now, he had yet to meet a girl that could truly move his heart. If he wanted to talk about his heart being moved, it would be the scene of that day in the snow. Snowflakes drifted down from the sky, and the young girl sitting on the ground with him, calling him a Dumbo, before leaving with a smile on her face. That scene was truly beautiful. What am I thinking about? Qin Wendian bitterly smiled as he shook his head. Remember, don't miss this opportunity. If not, you will regret it for the rest of your life. Gung Hong sighed deeply, as he continued, you are able to link divine imprints and innate techniques together, but have you ever tried to link your astral souls with your innate techniques? Senior, the attacks of innate techniques all contain a strand of energy from the astral souls within. Different astral souls can imbue different amounts of astral energy into the innate techniques you cultivate. As for a deeper connection, this junior has yet to unravel it. Qin Wendian replied. Although this was what he said, in reality, Qin Wendian already had this feeling. Back then when he fought against Yanaro and Luo Qianqiu, he had already faintly sensed that he wanted to infuse dream force into his attacks. You should know that above Yuan Fu is the Heavenly Dipper realm, right? But do you know what the symbol of a Heavenly Dipper realm is? Gung Hong asked Qin Wendian. Junior doesn't know. Qin Wendian replied. Currently, he was only at the arterial circulation realm. How could he possibly come into contact with someone at the Heavenly Dipper realm? Heavenly Dipper realm was already enough to stand at the pinnacle of Chu. When you condense your astral nova is also known as your astral soul. At that time, your astral soul would be the most direct form of combat prowess. A powerful astral nova is even more tyrannical compared to divine weapons. Gung Hong explained to Qin Wentian, sooner or later, your astral soul will be transformed into an innate technique. However, the amount of resources required to condense an astral nova is simply too great. From the Yuanfu realm to the Heavenly Dipper realm, there's a huge gap. Many people have no way to cross this heavenly boundary in their entire lives. This includes those with outstanding talent. If you can infuse your astral soul into your combat prowess earlier, in the future when you condense your astral nova, you would have a deeper comprehension and would have an easier time compared to others. Gung Hong guided Qin Wentian, as Qin Wentian listened seriously. This was the insights of a senior, an extremely valuable experience. Look into my eyes. Gung Hong spoke to Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian stared into Gung Hong's eyes, only to see a pair of eyes of death staring into his eyes. It was as though an intent of death rushed into his mind. Luckily, that intent of death instantly vanished, but in that instant, it still caused Qin Wentian's heart to palpitate wildly. Just a single gaze was already so terrifying. This is the fusion of my astral soul and my innate technique, the eyes of death. This innate technique can only be cultivated by those with a similar level of astral soul. Gung Hong continued, hence, you must always remember to use your astral soul. In the future, it will be your strongest weapon, and also the crux to raising your cultivation base. Many thanks for senior's guidance. Qin Wentian bowed. Just some words of experience, how can it be considered as guidance? If it wasn't for you, I'm afraid that I would still be unable to decipher these 4 paintings. Gung Hong sighed, Qin Wentian, the direction you've comprehended is correct. Astral souls, divine imprints, innate techniques, all of these are for the sake of cultivation. As the saying goes, all rivers flow into the sea, the great Tao originates from the same source. Work hard in your cultivation, live your life well, and don't have any regrets. You, go ahead. These 4 paintings were solved by you, so I'll gift them to you. Gung Hong treated Qin Wentian as a junior. Qin Wentian glanced at the silver-haired Gung Hong, as he received the paintings in his hands. Standing up, he bowed once more before retreating. Senior, take care. In the future, this junior will come and visit senior often. Qin Wentian left behind these words, as he stepped into the bamboo forest. Little Rascal scuttled out from the side, following behind him. Chapter 105. The Emperor Star Academy was even more lively than usual. As the end of the year neared, many of the students who were out tempering themselves returned. Under the sunlight, the laughter of the youths caused the entire academy to be filled with vitality. Within the academy, the most popular topic of discussion was naturally the strength of the students who returned, and whether they would be able to obtain outstanding results in the June Lin banquet. There were also many who would occasionally mention the name of Qin Wentian. This name could be said to be the most frequently mentioned name in the Emperor Star Academy this year, even more so than Luo Qianqiu last year. After all, in this year, this new student had accomplished many great things. Many of the returning students were filled with admiration for Qin Wentian. Naturally, there were also those who had been out tempering themselves for a long period of time and had heard of Qin Wentian's story the moment they returned to the academy. Although they were extremely prideful, they couldn't help but feel a tinge of defiance in their hearts. They wanted to spar with this new student to see if he was as legendary as the rumors said. Because of this, whenever Qin Wentian walked around the academy grounds, he would always attract the attention of many people. This was especially so after the incident with the Royal Academy. When he returned to the academy, there were even more gazes focused on him, causing Qin Wentian to smile bitterly in his heart. He had truly experienced the treatment of a celebrity. However, the feeling of being stared at everywhere he went wasn't a good one. Returning to his own courtyard, Qin Wendian discovered that other than Qin Yao, senior sister Luo Huan was there as well. Senior sister, why are you here? Qin Wendian smiled as he walked forward. I'm here to chat with Qin Yao. You caused such a huge commotion outside and are now a celebrity. When are you going to gift me a divine inscription painting? Luo Huan looked at Qin Wendian with a smile that was not a smile. If senior sister likes it, I will personally gift it to you the next time I create a divine inscription painting. Qin Wendian laughed. Don't lie to me. Luo Huan's beautiful eyes flashed with a strange light. Naturally. Not to mention one, even if senior sister wants 5 or 6 paintings, I will still give them to you. Qin Wendian laughed, causing the smile on Luo Huan's face to grow even more radiant. Looks like I didn't dote on you for nothing. Come over, let senior sister give you a kiss. Eh. Qin Wendian stared at Luo Huan's smiling face as his eyes flickered. He bitterly smiled, senior sister, stop tempting me. Luo Huan's charm was exceedingly great. Qin Wendian had seen many beauties before, but only Mo Qingcheng and Luo Huan were able to cause his heart to flutter. However, they were two different kinds of beauty. Mo Qingcheng was a peerless beauty of the mortal world. It was extremely hard for him to maintain his calmness upon seeing her. Not only that, his senior apprentice sister Luo Huan was simply too sexy. Seeing Qin Wendian's expression, Luo Huan couldn't help but laugh. Qin Yao also added, Sister Luo Huan, don't tease this little brat anymore. Come to think of it, this little brat is already 17 years old. I wonder if there's any girl he likes. I'm curious as well. Luo Huan stared at Qin Wendian. Sister, my mind is only focused on cultivation and rescuing my father. Where would I have the time to think about such matters? Qin Wendian couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. Not answering. Seems like there is. Let me guess. Luo Huan's beautiful eyes flickered as she continued, is it the #1 beauty of Chu, Mo Qingcheng? I heard that during Chu Tianjiao's banquet, she intentionally invited you over to chat with her. Senior sister, don't guess like that. Qin Wendian smiled bitterly, as the scenes of him meeting Mo Qingcheng flashed through his mind. What's there to be embarrassed about? Luo Huan continued smiling, that dainty little lass is indeed beautiful. Her title as the #1 beauty of Chu is definitely not just in name. At the very least, I've never seen such a beautiful lass in the royal capital. Not only that, her talent is extremely outstanding. In the royal capital, many of the 10 prodigies of the royal capital covet her. Luo Huan stared at Qin Wendian, as though her interest was piqued. She continued, no matter how I look at it, I feel that only that lass is worthy of my junior brother. Do you want Teacher Mustang to be the matchmaker? That lass's grandfather is your grandmaster. How could Qin Wendian resist Luo Huan's provocation? He could only smile bitterly. If you don't say anything, it means that you've admitted it. A young genius and the #1 beauty of Chu. Not bad, not bad. Luo Huan murmured to herself. Qin Yao, who was at the side, couldn't help but laugh when she saw the embarrassed look on Qin Wendian's face. She was thinking in her heart, if Qin Wendian could marry the #1 beauty of Chu, that would naturally be the best outcome. Okay, I won't tease you anymore. But what I said was the truth. If you want to pursue that little lass, senior sister will definitely support you. Luo Huan laughed. Today, there's a gathering at the Emperor's Star Monument. I'm going there now. Wendian, why don't you come with me and take a look at the outstanding students of our Emperor's Star Academy? What gathering? Qin Wendian curiously asked. It's almost the end of the year, and many students have already returned to the Emperor's Star Academy. They like to gather together to boast, exchange their experiences, or exchange pointers, displaying their accomplishments in the past year. Although there are many who do it for the sake of vanity, there are also some who are truly sincere in their exchange and can learn something from each other. Luo Huan explained to Qin Wentian, the strength of those who attend the gathering won't be weak. At the very least, they would be at the 7th level of arterial circulation. If not, they wouldn't be able to sit under the Emperor's Star Monument. But if you go, you definitely have the qualifications. The #1 student of the Emperor's Star Academy, a 17-year-old grandmaster who can create a 3rd-level divine inscription. The Emperor's Star Academy has never had such a genius before. Senior sister, don't boast about me. Qin Wentian bitterly smiled. I'll go with senior sister. After all, I don't spend much time in the Emperor's Star Academy. I might as well take this opportunity to get to know some of the outstanding students of our academy. I'll go with you as well. Qin Yao laughed. Okay, let's go together. Luo Huan pulled Qin Yao along, and the two of them walked shoulder to shoulder. Upon seeing this scene, Qin Wentian felt a trace of warmth in his heart. Although senior sister Luo Huan loved to joke around, and her words were always irrelevant, she had truly taken care of him and Qin Yao. Not only that, if one didn't pay close attention to it, they wouldn't be able to feel it. Which student of the Emperor's Star Academy didn't work hard in their cultivation? Who would waste so much time on outsiders? Senior sister Luo Huan didn't have much of a relationship with Qin Yao, but she would frequently visit Qin Yao and befriend her because she was afraid that Qin Yao would be lonely. Qin Wentian silently engraved this gratitude in his heart. If he were to say it out loud, based on senior sister Luo Huan's personality, she wouldn't even be bothered with him. Within the Emperor's Star Academy, there were 9 stone monuments named the Emperor's Star Monument. There were many words engraved on them, recording the 3,000 years of history of the Emperor's Star Academy. In front of the Emperor's Star Monument, there was a circular plaza with stone platforms on it. At this moment, several youthful silhouettes could be seen seated on the stone platforms. Every year, there would be many outstanding students of the Emperor's Star Academy sitting on these stone platforms, gazing at the Emperor's Star Monument, admiring the glory of their predecessors. At the same time, they were also determined to write down the history of the Emperor's Star Academy. Below the stone steps of the plaza, there were even more silhouettes. Their gazes were fixated on the stone platforms, as traces of respect could be seen in their eyes. At this moment, those who were seated on the stone platforms were all outstanding students of the Emperor's Star Academy. The cultivation bases of the senior brothers up there should be at least at the 7th level of arterial circulation. I wonder when I'll be able to break through to the 3rd level of arterial circulation. Not only at the 7th level of arterial circulation, all of them have their own achievements. If not, they wouldn't even be able to sit on the stone platforms together with the others. That's right, our Emperor's Star Academy has so many years of history. Every year, there would be fresh blood coming in, and there are many geniuses in the academy. Just based on the 3rd level of arterial circulation, there are already many senior brothers at the same level. If they don't have any special abilities, they wouldn't even have the qualifications to compete with the others. Below, many gazed at the silhouettes standing on the stone platforms, discussing which of the students was stronger. They were filled with curiosity towards this. Senior sister Luo Huan from the Green Cloud Association is here. Senior sister Luo Huan is as mesmerizing as ever. The beautiful girl beside her is Qin Yao, and that guy is Qin Wentian. He's here as well. The crowd parted to form a path, and on the stone platforms, there were many gazes directed towards Luo Huan and Qin Wentian. One of them smiled as he stated, Luo Huan, I heard that you've already stepped into the 9th level of arterial circulation. Come up here quickly. Is junior brother Qin beside me? Please come up here and chat with us. Another person laughed. Luo Huan held on to Qin Wentian's hand as the two of them ascended the stairs, and sat down on 2 adjacent stone platforms. Upon seeing this scene, the eyes of many in the crowd flashed with sharpness. Luo Huan and Qin Wentian appeared to be somewhat intimate, causing some to feel extremely unhappy in their hearts. After all, with Luo Huan's beauty and talent, there were many who pursued her in the Emperor's Star Academy. As though he could feel the hostility, Qin Wentian could only smile bitterly in his heart. Senior sister Luo Huan had caused him so much trouble. At this moment, he could clearly feel the coldness in the gazes of those who were looking at him. However, his countenance remained calm as he surveyed the silhouettes on the stone platforms. There were over 30 people on the stone platforms, and their cultivation bases were all at least at the 3rd level of arterial circulation. This was the foundation of the Emperor's Star Academy. In the future, these people would all have the opportunity to break through to Yuanfu. Not only that, there were still many who had yet to arrive. For example, Luo Qianqiu, Orkan, and the others. Just within the Emperor's Star Academy, there were already so many people at this level. One could only imagine how magnificent the Junlin banquet would be. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.